Boom, we are live Thursday night this week, guys. Hope everybody is enjoying the weather today. The northeastern sunshine was glorious out here. So, ladies and gentlemen, we have a great podcast. This one is a podcast that should have happened many years ago, but we're making it happen now. So that's all that matters. So I am going to get this one started, and we'll get her going. All right, 56. What's good, y'all? This is C-Certified Brewhead, and welcome to episode 56 of Beer Not Just the Podcast Adjunct Series Quarantine Edition. This week, just before we start, we have the next few months, actually, all the podcasts are going to be brought to you by a sponsor. Now, any listeners or viewers will know that we don't really do this much. We've probably had a sponsor 4 or 5 times over the years. So this one, we're not just taking stuff from anybody, So if we're working with a company, it means that we believe in them. Now, this episode of BAOS is brought to you by Dr. Nick's Amazing Man Stuff. We had them on the podcast last week. Let me get my head out the way. There we go. They make a series of beard oils. They're based in Massachusetts. Now, if you listen to the podcast episode, you get to learn a lot more, but this is one of the main reasons. They actually made something here called Beard Beer, based on an IPA and a stout. 2 different products for their beard oils, and they make them, it's all American made. They use essential oils and not the fragrance oils that are kind of cheap and itchy your skin and stuff. This stuff is actually sent from Hawaii. All the bottles and the caps, everything is all sourced locally, so it's hyper local without an exorbitant price. They're about $20 US a bottle, which is pretty decent for all locally made products. They also do a beard balm right here. Oh, let me get this up. I can't even hold it right. Look at that, mate. So this stuff is super sick. Nick was telling me on the podcast, he combines the balm with the IPA. So you put the IPA stuff on and then the balm, and it's killer. The other products they have are, they're beard sanitizers. So he said literally called Shelter and Face, which is hilarious. He goes, you say you're in the car or whatever, and you got your mask on, you go do your thing, you come back, you spray it on your whole face, including the mask, because it sanitizes the mask, and then you smooth it through your beard, and it sanitizes your hands at the same time. So, kind of genius. I've been using these products since January. I've been sitting on them. I've been using them every day, and I'm not a beard oil kind of guy. I do have a mild beard. There are people with more fire ones than I. But I've genuinely been enjoying them, which is why we decided to partner up. So, the deal for any listeners or viewers, you can get 15% off your order with the code BAOS21. The link is in the description here on YouTube, and it will also be in the show notes on all podcast platforms. So go cop that. It's free shipping if it's over $40 order. Literally 2 beard oils or 2 products will get you over that. They ship all across North America, I believe elsewhere too. I'm not sure about the free shipping deal though, but definitely take a look at that. So shouts to Dr. Nick's Amazing Man Stuff. Now, with that said, this evening we have a podcast that I've wanted to do for a long time. It just hasn't worked out. These guys are partially responsible for me getting into craft beer. They were one of the first Canadian and Ontario-based breweries that I ever got to drink. So I am extraordinarily stoked to have the guys on. So guys, please welcome Todd and Gary of Muskoka Brewery. Boys, there we go.
Hey everyone.
Bloody champions. Great to see you. How are you guys doing?
Good.
Already drinking.
I love that for April.
Yes, it's a beautiful thing, right?
Oh yeah.
Yeah, we were just talking about that earlier. The weather has been quite exceptional for all of us. So Canada is blessing us right now. And what better way to celebrate than cracking one of your brand new products? So we're going to get into a lot of stuff tonight, but we're going to start with the new stuff. This is your hard sparkling water, peach and blackcurrant. What a flavor combo as well. Before we even get to your history, boys, tell us about this one, because this is fascinating.
Yeah. So it's very easy. Just sparkling water with some peach and blackcurrant. Very aromatic. The peach is going to be the front runner for sure, and then the blackcurrant will come in on the end. You should get some fuzzy peach notes there, and it's 0 sugar, which is what a lot of people are going for these days. So
right.
It adds up. I'm pretty excited for you to try it, actually.
Oh man. I had an interesting question. So
I'm drinking out of a can, but it's got to, if you pour that, Craig, and give it a good sip, you'll definitely get lots of fresh fuzzy peach on it.
Oh, the peach is huge.
Yeah.
Mate, boys, cheers.
Cheers.
Wow.
I'm already drinking.
Hey man, you can't mess around. Well, that's great. So I had a couple questions about this because this is a new product. Typically, across the beer market, that is really enticing beer drinkers. Now, to the first question, you called it hard sparkling water, which I really enjoy because most ones that I've seen is they call it hard seltzer, which is kind of an American word. We don't really talk like that over here, but that was just the product name, and people have continued that. So why did you guys go with hard sparkling water? Ooh, yeah.
Yeah, in all honesty, we debated it long and hard when we were kind of the concept of coming up with the hard sparkling water. It was before, there were a lot of seltzers in Ontario or even Canada at that point, and White Claw hadn't made its way here yet. But and we kind of felt the same way, Craig, in terms of we always talk about, really want to be that iconic Canadian brand, and seltzers didn't feel like us, didn't feel like Muskoka, and on a number of fronts, we really try to stay true to our roots and kind of what got us here 25 years later, and even simple things which aren't so simple, like on the branding side, or even words that we use with our beer or spirits. So yeah, it was a bit of a new way in terms of a descriptor, but it was purposeful that we didn't want to call it seltzer.
Gotcha. I mean, that makes sense. It kind of like aligns a bit more maybe with people who haven't heard of hard seltzer, might be like, what on earth is this product? And then they see hard sparkling water. I'm like, oh, they can kind of align it more.
Yeah, the shelves are so, full, and the competition on shelf, and it's hard for consumers, and in all honesty, trying to make it easy for them as well.
No, I like that.
Yeah, I think we just didn't want to go the whole route of educating the consumer. I think everyone just knows what a hard sparkling water is, or sparkling water in general. I know we did have big talks about seltzer versus sparkling water, and I think sparkling water it's straight to the point, right?
Yeah, it couldn't be more, and I feel like it speaks to Canada in a way that seltzer in and of itself kind of doesn't. Like it does in the beer market. Beer nerds know about it, but the average person who sees it might not really know what it is. The other question I had specifically about this, my understanding for this type of beverage, it can be made a bunch of different ways. There's some sort of malt background, there's distilling some stuff, and it seems like you guys made it a vodka-based beverage, which I imagine would mean you went to that distilling kind of method. Do you want to maybe expand on that and like how you arrived at making it a vodka-based beverage?
In terms of the process, I can turn some of that over to Gary, but honestly, we did a bunch of trials. We had a product out, I guess almost 4 years ago now, in terms of trialing. It was called Muskoka Docker. Craig, I don't know if you ever tried that or remember that brand at all.
I know of it, yeah.
Yeah, we started out with a gin and tonic, and because we were making gin at that time, and gin and cranberry. It was really good, and sales didn't blow the doors off by any means. I think in terms of maybe some of those mixed cocktails, we were maybe a little bit ahead on that. So we did a bunch of, at that point, there was also malt-based seltzers coming out, and we did a bunch of trials, and knowing, at that point we were distilling, and we had, access to NGS as well. We just thought in terms of the flavor profile and the taste that we wanted to land on, because we did trials we mocked up this kind of exact recipe, malt-based as well. And in terms of the flavor profile that we were looking for, and kind of the clean finish that we were looking for, we wanted to go this route with our launch.
Makes sense.
Yeah, the spirit based over the malt base is just so much cleaner for the whole flavor profile.
Right.
It's a lot easier to keep clear than a malt base. It's production's a lot easier. It's just a cleaner product in the end.
Okay. How do you do the flavoring for this type of one? Like what's the, like, I know there's a few different ways you can use some sort of like, I don't know if it's like an essence or whatever, or I've heard a bunch of different stuff. Which way did you guys go?
So yeah, these are all natural essences from a company right in Mississauga there, and they work really close with us, and they'll pretty much match any flavor and trial a lot of flavors with us. I think we went through like 7 different peach flavors with them just to nail this one down for sure.
Wow, that's awesome. It's a great combo. I don't even think I've seen this combo in a beer before. Peach and blackcurrant.
We've done peach and we've done blackcurrant, but never together.
Yeah, that was kind of right off the get-go. We wanted to do kind of 2 fruit combinations. We didn't want to do a single or 3. It was always what are really complementary combinations there, and that's the fun part. Like, honestly, I know we drive Gary and Chris and the innovation team a little bit nuts, but it's really 6 or 7 of us sitting around in a room, or in the case of peach blackcurrant, with COVID last summer on the patio outside, just trying in an afternoon 7 or 8 different variants and saying, not so much, or I really like this, but maybe it's a little too much blackberry. Can we amp up the peach a little bit? And it's funny because some stuff that we thought were going to be our lead horses, just in terms of, okay, you put it on paper, it's a flavor descriptor, and you marry these 2 fruits, it sounds refreshing and tropical or delicious, and then we do it all blind, and so it's really based on taste. And with this one, and actually with our kind of pineapple raspberry too, we kind of surprised ourselves because they weren't kind of our lead combinations, I would say, going in, but we stayed true to the process, and we said, in terms of flavors, it was kind of unanimous. This is what we really loved, and a lot is Gary alluded to, the essence of the extracts that we use in terms of the all natural, and the peach that we found and landed on because you got to be careful. So many of you can go down that kind of artificially peach route, and with a lot of them that kind of skewed us the other way, and we moved off stuff quickly. But when we first tasted this, we knew, this is what we wanted to bring to market.
I love it. When do these release? Are these out now, or are they coming out soon?
They're in the process of rolling out now. Yeah.
Okay.
They're live at the brewery. Go ahead, Todd.
Yep, at the brewery, and then they're shipped. They're at the LCBO warehouse, so probably getting on shelf. Hopefully, sometime even over this weekend, maybe they'll start leaking out into stores as well.
Perfect timing. I love that. That's amazing. Todd, by any chance, on your computer, I'm just being told that you're a little quiet on your side. Do you have like an input audio that you're, because I can't turn you, I'm basically manually adjusting it between you and Gary every time you talk. I'm changing the volume here, but I don't think that's doing the trick. If you have like an input microphone setting or something like that, you can kind of like ramp it up a little bit potentially. Just a heads up. Take your time, work on that. We'll keep going. Okay, so that makes sense. So there's a 4-pack as well, which I forgot to get from the room. So once I'll get Tiff to grab that in a few minutes. But so you've got these, the peach and blackcurrant, which is also in the 4-pack. I think it's like they're like short cans, right? They're like 375s.
Yeah, 355s. Yeah, 355s.
What are the other flavors in that pack?
So we have I can't even remember. A coconut lime, a raspberry pineapple, and we call it field berry. So it's blackberry, blueberry, and lemon.
Nice.
The field berry is like the big punch of flavor. It's the burst one for flavor for sure.
Okay, I love that. Are they all pretty similar? Because this is like, oh, here we go. Look at that. Thank you, Tiff. So this is the bad boy right here. This is the one that's available at the brewery now, and we'll be able to grab from LCBO soon. Look at that.
Yeah.
Very cool. I love it. It's such a cool concept. It's perfect timing for coming up to the summer as well. Like, take one of these to the park if it's legal. And it is here, so and knock that back. It's just really cool. It's super perfect timing, particularly as we were saying earlier. We're just getting this sort of unseasonably warm weather, so we might be able to, it's going to be very necessary for folks to be getting into this stuff very soon. So I love it. It's very cool, guys, and it makes sense for the brand. I remember the Docker from a year or two ago, and this kind of is like the next, iteration of that, which is kind of putting your own spin on a product that's, starting to make some noise out here. It's great. I love it.
Oh, it's running wild.
Yeah, man. you got to kind of get on board, or it's get left behind here.
We also,
I
Craig,
can agree with that.
Compared to last year, we also are launching, just bringing out to a 12-pack of it, which is new for us. Having that in a 12, and it's an all berry pack. So you see the coconut lime in that one.
Yep.
It's not in the 12-pack. It's just the pineapple, and it's the
Peach blackcurrant and the fieldberry lemon.
Fieldberry, yeah.
I love that. That's so cool. And they're only 100 calories per can. Is that correct?
In the 355s, yeah.
I think they're 130 for the big one. If I saw that earlier, 130.
Yep.
So that's pretty damn good, man. Because I imagine like a hazy IPA, which we'll get to later, is probably like 500 calories or something absurd.
Yeah, you're in about the 350 to 400, depending on which like how hot it is, and
It's crazy.
alcohol, obviously.
It's a little, it's problematic, but goddamn it, it's worth it. We love it. This is how you balance it out. So, with that said, let's get into the beer stories, because I'd love to hear how you both got into craft beer, and maybe we can amalgamate those two kind of with the history of Muskoka Brewery itself. I imagine both of you weren't there at the genesis of everything, but you probably be able to speak to the story and sort of how it changed and moved over the years. It's pretty epic.
Absolutely. I'll let Todd go first on that.
Can you hear me any better? If I
I'm
get
getting.
closer, I try to just in my.
I just. Is Todd a bit better now?
Yeah.
Yeah? Yeah. Cool. I'm getting better. Can we turn it up even more, or it's okay?
No, this is sounding good.
It's sounding good, Todd. You're sounding good. I'm getting notes. Tiff is in communication with the brewery here. It's a whole, like, we got the NASA Houston going on right back here. Everyone's letting us know.
Yeah.
I love it. I appreciate it. It's cool.
I don't know what's going on with my Beats Bluetooth. I'm gonna have to give Dr. Dre a call and figure out what's going on, because normally they're good, but the story of Muskoka is pretty interesting, Craig. I don't know how much you know about it. It's I've been in beer since '98, so 23 years, and like we talked about, Muskoka celebrating our 25th, and we talk a lot as a company about our values and our why, and why we're here, why do we get up and come to work every day. And a word that we use a lot is the word resolve. And if you know the story of Muskoka and the genesis of how the brewery and it came to be 25 years later, it's pretty interesting. So 1996, well, actually it was back in probably about 92 or 93. Two high school friends, Gary McMullen and Kirk Evans, both up from Muskoka, Huntsville area. Gary was off in military college in RMC, and I think Kirk was at York University. And Gary was a home brewer, and so he was really interested in brewing. I think at that time, the Canadian military was downsizing and offering packages to kind of get out of the military. Gary loved brewing. He was experimenting at home, so he approached his buddy Kirk and said, there's a big brewery right off the 400 in Barrie. Molson had their big brewery right there, and basically there was nothing north. And it's like, why not do it? So, rallied together, a bunch of shareholders, a bunch of money. The community kind of kicked in a bunch. Moved into the old granary building, which was downtown Bracebridge on Taylor Road, and that was a building still, that was around, after, I guess, the first 16 years, because when I started with the brewery, that was the building that I worked out of. So they opened in June of 1996 with one brand. That was Muskoka Cream Ale. Exactly. We're going to try it a bit later on. Exactly the same recipe. Well, it changed a little bit, but basically the recipe from '96 is the same one that we're using right now. And so, as with any new startup, lots of help and lots of community support along the way to get open. And then that was June. And then of August of that year, Gary's partner in the business, Kurt, was involved in a horrific car accident on Highway 11. And he actually passed away a couple of months later.
Wow.
So it was at that point where, Gary was doing some soul searching, I think, and he not only lost, one of his best friends, but he lost his business partner and just wasn't sure how it was going to continue to go forward. Back then it was, I think craft was about just under a 2 share in Ontario at that point. There was probably a handful of players, and you would know who they are. And so the brewery was struggling. Gary didn't have a lot of money. He'd lost his partner. And so, as the story goes, it was September, and I think it was the Canadian Brewing Awards. Actually, I think it was the Great Canadian Brewing Festival, it was called back then. Gary actually didn't have enough money to buy the traditional bittering hop that he was using for cream ale. So he just dumped a shitload of Cascade Hops into the kettle and kind of went from there. And that's a hop. You know that hop. It's more of a West Coast style hop back then. I think Sierra Nevada was using it in their pale ale, and there wasn't a lot around in 1996 in Ontario like that. So entered that cream ale with the Cascade hop in the Great Canadian Brewing Festival and won Beer of the Year. And that was September. So that was a month after the accident. So I think that was a real sign to, I think, Gary and the Muskoka team back then. It was only a team of 3 or 4. That was a sign that, we need to keep going here. We need to have that resolve. And again, we talk about as we grow, and when I got to the brewery, I first met Gary back in 2010. I got to the brewery in 2011. I was employee number 20 something, and we're up to about 120. When you look at our seasonal staff in the summer, so we have a big crew. But in those early days, it really was the community, I think, that pulled together and delivered beer, came in to help fill bottles, stick labels on bottles, clean tanks. It was really friends, family, neighbors. So we're very conscious of that as a brewery, as we grow and add, and that we don't forget kind of our roots, that what that community meant to us, why the only reason that we're still here is that community. And we'll talk about it probably a little bit later, Craig, is some of the initiatives that we've rolled out to, especially through COVID, but other things we've done along the way the past 25 years, really to kind of support the community. So that's kind of the story of kind of how kind of Muskoka came to be. And maybe I'll let Gary jump in and talk to how you got into brewing, Gary, and how you found your way to Muskoka, and then I can kind of jump in terms of how I got to the brewery back in 2010.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah, so I mean, I've been in brewing now for 7 years, I believe. I never went to actual brewing school or really had a passion for home brewing. I just kind of moved out west and needed a job as a young guy and got into a small brewery out west. And I was just cleaning kegs and getting free beer, and I thought it was fantastic. And then they just said, "Hey, do you want to try brewing?" And I was like, "Yeah, sure, why not?" And the moment like you spend the weeks making a beer, and then you actually get to sit down after work and drink that beer you put all that work into, just clicked for me, and I've never looked back. And moved back home to Ontario from Calgary, and was looking for another brewing job. And in January 2016 is when I joined the brewing team for Muskoka Brewery, and I was like a hybrid QC / brewer then, and worked my way up to the head brewer role now.
I love it.
Nothing really glamorous, just slinging yeast all day.
Slinging yeast.
Yeah, he's not a sit. We would have been Yukon without Gary in the past year. It was, Gary stepped into a new role as head brewer. We were short-staffed a lot last year, and there was so many. I know it's a way overused word in terms of pivots, but there was a million things that we had to change across pretty much every aspect of the business, including me coming to Gary and said, "Hey, Gary, do you know how to make hand sanitizer?" And he's like, "Well, no." And well, we got 3 weeks to figure it out. And just that, that can-do attitude, and because of COVID and trying to keep the team safe, we were short-staffed a lot on the brew side throughout the year, and Gary's one of those guys that just always finds a way to get it done, and we're very fortunate that we're here, where we are, living through the 12 months that we had, and for sure, Gary's a big part of that, and lots of experiment and craziness and conversations along the way, but we're still here.
I love that. I'm like, I don't know, I see what you mean with the pivot being kind of a bit of an overused word. Everyone's mentioning it, but changing from doing, making craft beer to making hand sanitizer is an adapt. You have to adapt to that, and it's been very cool to hear stories that breweries have been able to be like, all right, well, how can we contribute to society? What do we need more than beer right now? And the fact that you guys were able to figure that out and give back, I love that. That's been one of my favorite positive stories from the whole terrible last year that humanity has been dealing with.
Absolutely.
I think it's so key. I'm just writing down Slingin Yeast because that is such a great term. I think that might be the episode name. So no, that's awesome. That's it's really great. Yeah, Tiff was just saying Slingin Yeast episode name for sure. Just so you know, Todd, everyone is telling me that the levels between you guys are good now. You sound a little echoey, but aside from that, it's about the same. So we're not too bad. If there's no other headphone solution, then we're okay. Everything sounds decent enough. So with that in mind, do we want to, I'm looking at the time, we're coming up on just over 25 minutes or so. Do we want to?
Your time.
Next one? All right. What are we doing next, boss?
We will be doing the Tread Lightly.
Oh, yes. I love this one. So this was a, Tread Lightly, please. All in the fridge there. So this was a really cool one. You guys actually released this in short cans in a case last year, which I thought, thank you so much, which was awesome. And I really enjoyed this beer, guys. Tell us how this one came about, because I'm pretty sure it was a one-off that became a regular. Is that accurate?
No, this one, I think we had an idea for this one to really jump into the core brand right away for sure.
Yeah.
We have our craft lager, and it does so good. I think we just wanted, and I'll let Todd speak to it on more too. We just wanted something to expand that part of our portfolio as well.
I love it.
Like sessionable lagers are definitely having a huge comeback with flavorful, well-made lagers. I'm gonna pour mine now too.
Yeah, only 4%, so it's fantastic. We're getting the photos as we go. Sorry about that. Yes, go on, Todd, please.
Greg, we were kind of, as we were getting into our plan last year, we were really looking hard at, obviously, as is, a lot of people, that whole, functional beer, functional beverage space, and, better for you being a trend, and how do we want to play there? What do we want? And it's funny because, I was kind of going into the process, often we'll have a project name or whatever, and this project name, this was our light pilsner, because all along we thought we've got a really good lager that is actually one of our fastest growing brands in terms of our craft lager, and so going through this, we always thought, cheers.
Cheers. Well, didn't want to catch you off.
Cheers, gentlemen.
It's only 4%, by the way, folks. Yeah, it's great. Continue, Todd. Sorry, brother.
Which is what we hear a lot, Craig, in terms of people, in terms of the flavor and the body and the mouthfeel, for 4%, and I think we let the process, because we were going into it saying, we're going to probably do a light lager, a light pilsner, and then we had a couple of taste panels actually at the brewery, and we had a really good base to go from in terms of beer drinkers and some Muskoka fans, some not, and brought everybody to the brewery, and including a lot of our team and our leadership team, and of course all blind. And at the end of the day, it was overwhelming that it was something like 75. I think we sampled, if I'm correct, between some pilsners and different lighter lagers. I think we sampled maybe 5 or 6 different brands blind, and recipes blind, and overwhelmingly it was something like 75 or 80% came back that we like this one. This was, I can't remember, it was number 4. Number 4 overwhelmingly, it was telling us something, and we were hoping it would be a pilsner, but it wasn't. And Curtis and the team and Gary and the brew team just did a great job with this beer, and we wanted to hit a mark in terms of a 355. 110 calories and really play in that better for you space, but in a way that was true to Muskoka in terms of, anything we do, whether it be our hard sparkling water or any of our beers or anything that we're going to do down the road, it's always really flavor forward. Like, it's got to taste good. And, but it's funny because being around, so I joined the brewery, I first met Gary back in 2010. And back then I remember, him giving me a sampler pack of Muskoka, and they only have 5 brands then. It was cream ale, craft lager, there was a Hefeweizen, a dark ale, and a Pilsner Light back in 2010. And back then it was a flop. The market wasn't ready for a craft beer that was light. They're like, if I wanted a light beer, I want it because I don't want the flavor. Your light beer, your Pilsner has too much flavor, and I'm not, and so it actually, I think it stuck around for maybe a year and a half, and then killed the brand. And then, here we were, 10 years later coming back and saying, in terms of the white space in our portfolio, we really need to nail it and launch a really flavorful light lager. It's funny how it's kind of come full circle.
That's a really good point. I remember all of those brands. As you were saying that was kind of tripping me out. I remember, I think it even came in like a pack or something as well. You could get the bunch. I remember the dark specifically. Yeah, man, that's a tripper. You are right. It's been an interesting thing over the last couple of years where people have just wanted something that's more crushable, and lower calorie. I think it was almost like a pendulum swing back from the pastry stouts and the big haze that, like we were saying before, like 500 calories or whatever. And people coming back and they're like, well, this little thing that's happening in my belly is not too great. What else can we do? And, I didn't know this was 100. The tall can's 150, and you're saying the 355 was 110. Amazing.
That's great.
That's incredible, honestly. I did not know that part. I didn't notice that the first time, a few times I had this. But, there definitely has been an interest across the board in lower ABV beers that maybe people want to session stuff. They don't want to have 2 or 3 8% beers. They want to have more 4% beers and have enough flavor so it's not overwhelming, but it's, it also isn't going straight to your gut. It's fantastic. It's the perfect brand. It was cool to see this one come out as like a one-off, and then not too long later see it continue to come back, and then now in the case, which I believe was your first case as far as the volume that you produce like that, which is great.
Yeah, our first suitcase actually. It's a nice little bag.
How was the response to that to that sort of packaging from a brewery that's craft breweries typically don't make that type of thing, so I guess it was a bit of a paradigm shift potentially for the customers being able to associate that format with a high quality craft brewery.
I'm still producing them, so. Go ahead, Todd.
It's one of our the 2 Fort suitcase is one of our fastest growing packs right now, Craig. And
wow. We
were kind of seeing some indicators on, even though we didn't have like a suitcase format, just even flats of our tall cans, because you get when you get the reports from the beer store, it's broken out in terms of pack up, and we were saying even a year and a half and 2 years ago, we're saying, wow. Even on brands like Mad Tom, which you maybe wouldn't think a little higher alcohol, there's a certain segment that are actually looking for pack up, and they're looking to buy 2 4s of craft lager and cream ale and Detour and Mad Tom, and then I think we started down that path, and I think the timing of us having that option, we pulled a bunch of stuff ahead to launch it prior to Christmas, and I think through the pandemic, it probably just more than anything fueled that people were looking for more pack-up options, and there's not still a heck of a lot on the craft side, and so we're really happy after kind of year one. We kind of blew our forecast out of the water with Tread lately, and we're just really optimistic on where that brand can go.
I love that. That's a really good point that you made, and I actually forgot that was a thing where one of the big takeaways I think from the pandemic were that customers and drinkers were looking for more volume of lower ABV beers as opposed to a 4-pack of an 8 or 10% beer or something like that. I imagine because everyone was going through this big change and people didn't know what was happening, they're scared, and people were just all right, well, we've got nothing else to do is drink. And those type of products ended up, once we sort of got past that initial let's get trashed, we get to work from home phase, the actual market kind of corrected it, and that's what people were left with. That's what they wanted. It was such an interesting thing, because I wonder if that would have happened if it weren't for the pandemic. You know what I mean? I know that these low ABV products were definitely getting more popular. Prior to this, I'd interviewed some folks from You know how in Quebec we have the specialty beer stores, which we're going to get to shortly about you guys. But, you know, I interviewed a few folks from those stores, and they would keep telling me that people were buying the nano IPAs at like 2.5% and all these other light things. I remember when they told me, I was kind of like pretty skeptical. I was like, really? Like, people want this? Why would you want this? And I guess I just, you know, I was probably too far on the craft nerd side where I'm drinking the ridiculous stuff. And now I completely see the value. I drink a lot of non-alcoholic stuff now on my off nights from drinking, and I'm loving it. So I find that this whole segment is this whole new thing. So it's great to see that it's working well for you guys, and you're really like hitting a strong need, you know, in the market that people are loving. It's a beautiful thing.
Now, are you drinking, Craig, non-alcoholic beers, or just, you know, are you experimenting with a whole bunch of different non-alcoholic beverages?
Beers specifically. What happened with me? I think I'd be curious to know about you guys, because you're in the industry. I'm like industry adjacent, so I have to drink. Particularly you, Gary. You have to drink every day at probably 6 a.m. You're like coming in and testing all the fermenters, and you know, when I've only been in bed.
Unfortunately, yeah.
It's a hard job, right? So you know,
someone's got to do it though.
It is very true. Someone does have to do it. I actually don't envy that. I don't like day drinking, but the thing that I noticed that I was kind of drinking because I have obligations, I guess you could call them. People send me stuff. I need to create content, and that's really what it is. So I would just kind of drink until I kind of woke up and I'm like not feeling too good. I'm like, I think I'm gonna take today off, and then maybe it turned out to be a few days off. Then I'll get back to it, and then eventually I'd just get a cold or something. I'd be sick for a couple weeks, and then back to it, and I'd repeat. And if I'm traveling in the normal world, I would get sicker more often because you're traveling, your immune system's down, now with this COVID hindsight, it's disgusting how we used to live. We were animals. So I've noticed now what I decided to do was I cut down. I have 4 strict nights a week on, typically in like, you know, Thursday, Friday, Saturday. Then I take 2 nights off. I'll go 1 more on Tuesday, then I'll take Wednesday off. So it's kind of like a little bit split up. And I haven't been sick in a year plus, touch wood. And I find that I've been able to control everything a lot more. And one thing I found on those off nights, if I ever did have a craving, non-alcoholic beers specifically have been really handy for that. And I used to think they were pretty trash and they were just like, you know, shitty hop flavored water type of thing. But now if you think of it as hop flavored water and not a bad beer, I've really enjoyed them. And I find there's a lot of value for that product. So with that lengthy ass intro, have you guys looked into non-alcoholic beers at all?
Yeah,
I'll let Todd touch that. Go ahead, Todd.
We have. It continues. You know, it continues to be part of our conversations on, you know, what I said before in terms of being flavor forward and how does it augment kind of our existing portfolio, and can we do it right? Right now, we can't do it right without either, you know, contracting out to somebody, which isn't kind of, you know, our style or our DNA, or it's a shitload of capex, to be honest with you, to get the equipment that we need to do it right. But the space is going to continue to grow, and you know, we probably do need something in that space. It's funny because today, for most of the day, I was in a second day of 2022 strategic planning already. You know, we're through really only the first quarter, and we don't even have a lot of results in terms of our brands, our new innovation hitting the market, and but you know, the LCBO has pulled forward some timelines in terms of, you know, when we need to pitch for next year, and that's pulled everything forward. So, you know, in the past where we would have kind of pitched our annual plans in the fall time period, you know, like maybe late September to mid-October, now we're going to be doing that pretty much in July, which you know, does pull everything forward, but then at least going into the year in terms of, you know, procurement or having to order, you know, cans which have long lead times or packaging, hops, whatever, is at least now going into 2022, we'll know far in advance of, you know, what we're going to go with and what we're not. So a big part of it, even part of our conversations today, was you know, non-alc for sure. We're reading and seeing the same thing that you are.
Interesting. I love that you guys are doing it. It's totally on brand and it fits with the rest of your portfolio. On that note, Todd, I think this is a really interesting convo. I think people might not really understand how far ahead breweries have to plan to make things happen. And like you said, with longer lead times for packaging, particularly during the pandemic, I heard that cans were an issue. With that increased lead time being that it is April and you're planning for next year, so like Q2 2021, and you're planning for 2022, is there a challenge, I guess this is for both of you guys, like with trying to predict what's going to be hot and what people want next year, because there might be some crazy explosion of a trend in September this year, but you're already planning for next year, and that might be too late to get to roll something out. You know what I'm saying? Like, how does that affect you guys?
Absolutely. We definitely see that challenge. Now, granted, it makes my life a whole lot easier pre-planning now for next year, for sure. Yeah. But it is a challenge, and I think with our Moonlight Kettle series, which I think we'll touch on a lot more later, we can actually see where the trends are going with that small batch releases monthly. We can see where people are kind of going already, and just getting customer feedback all throughout the year already. We know what people want to drink, which way they're kind of leaning towards. Now, there are surprises every once in a while that jump out on us, and we can adapt, obviously. We can adapt pretty quick, but for some of the big flagship brands or big changes that we want to make, it's definitely better to have it planned out now than say October.
So it's more of, go on, Todd, please.
Yeah, it's a funny feeling, to be honest with you, Craig, because I'd say over I think it's 44% of our volume is done from May 2-4 to Labor Day. So usually you have a pretty good gut. Like that's the book. Coming into August, you're either rocking and rolling on some or you're not. Our Muskoka Brewery, our volume is really spread over a number of brands versus probably a lot of others. Like if you look at our friends over at Steam Whistle, how much volume they have in Steam Whistle Pilsner, and definitely Detour is our lead horse, but it's not like it's the gap is that far. We have 5 core brands that we go to, and the volume is spread pretty good amongst those. So it's really about, so we have a good gut on that. We do a lot of homework in preparation for this. Sarah, who leads our marketing team, and Ross, who leads our sales team, we do a lot of homework before when we could travel, Craig, and even when I kind of first got into the craft side of the business, I spent a lot of time in the U.S., the Great American Beer Festival, CBC, Brewbound, just sponge, just soaking it all in. It was so different. My first 13 years in beer were with Molson Coors. So coming to Muskoka was a very different experience, and wanting to immerse myself in how different it was. And luckily I had lots of help and friends along the way. But even if you look at the initial, when I first got there in 2010, we were just talking about, launching Mad Tom and West Coast IPAs. And we were getting that because we spent time in San Diego and San Francisco. And we were seeing what was going on in those markets. And then, same thing when we launched Detour in 2014. We were kind of seeing the shift from people still liking their IPAs, but they wanted, them a little bit more sessionable, and they wanted to have more of them. And, we were the first out of the gate with an ISA, or a truly sessionable IPA in Ontario. And so that's presented a bit of a unique challenge when it comes to, the planning cycle, because, usually we're, learning firsthand, and we believe in being in the field and going to these craft hotbeds, whether it be Portland or Washington or Philadelphia or San Diego or, even Michigan, there's great spots. And so we've always traditionally done our homework, which I think from the trust we've built with, our biggest customer, the LCBO, is I think there's an understanding or trust there that if we're going to bring something to them, or we're going to ask them for a listing, that we're just not throwing shit at the wall. We've done our homework, and we really believe that it's going to succeed, and it's going to help to drive volume in their stores. And that's probably the hardest part of the planning cycle, and it's something that we talked about yesterday and today. It took the bulk of the conversation is that portfolio planning, that portfolio optimization. I think right now we probably have 15 or 16 brands. Every time you add a brand, you become less efficient. And you've got a favorite, and trust me, like brands that were performing really well that maybe had a life cycle, like our, Summer Vice Tropical Wheat, going away. I got a lot of hate mail over that, including from my wife. There's Kirby Golf was another one, Shinnikin Stout, but it's like, if we really think that the market's going this way, we got some real cool innovation or something we really want to bring, then what has to move out of the way to make room for that? Because you can't have them all, otherwise you're going to be stuck with 40 brands and a million different packages and format types, and it's really hard to grow and manage a business like that. So it's hard because they're like kids. You get attached to brands, and you're with brands for sometimes 5-10 years, and there's a core base, and you have to make sure that you've done your homework before you step off something, especially if you're stepping off something that's got significant volume there because you don't believe the future volume will be there. You've got to make damn sure that whatever's coming in, you're very confident it can at least replace that volume, but in hopes of obviously growing it. Otherwise, you wouldn't be doing it.
Wow. These are words that I don't hear too often. I love this. I have a business as well, so I love hearing you talk about beer in this sort of perspective. I feel like people sometimes forget that craft beer is a business too. We all love it, but you have to think about it from these perspectives to keep the train going. I love it. I wanted to ask then, did you just say 2014 is when Detour came out?
Yeah.
Gee, honest, I swear to God, it probably felt like in my head, it did not feel like it was that long ago. I remember that explicitly. Okay, that's crazy. What are the? I'm just really curious because you guys are a unique type of brewery that you've been around so long and that you have so many brands. What are, say, the top 5 top selling brands that you have in order? Because I don't know why, but when you said Detour was number 1, I don't know why, but I wouldn't have guessed that. I don't know what I would have guessed either, but I don't think I would have said Detour.
Do you want to handle that one, Gary? You want me to take it?
Oh, yeah, if I can remember the exact order. So Detour is definitely our number 1, followed by Craft Lager, and then pretty sure it's Mad Tom after that. And then I think it goes to Cream Ale from there. And I wouldn't remember what the 5th one. It must be Tread Lightly at this point. It's either Tread Lightly or Hazed.
Okay.
Between those two.
Tread's nipping at the heels of, so those would be for sure our top 5. And the interesting thing in my time, like I said, I've been here just over 10 years, but unlike a lot of other, craft breweries in Ontario, we've had different, when I got to Muskoka, obviously our number 1 brand was Cream Ale. It was, it was our flagship. It was kind of the quintessential cottage country brand. And then, when we launched Mad Tom in 2011, it just came out of the gate like nuts. And within a year, it was already our number 1 brand, surpassing Cream Ale. And then, 3 years later, we launched Detour, and it quickly became our number 1 brand. So kind of just in my time here, we've had kind of 3 lead horses. And right now, like Gary said, even though some of those other brands are bigger, our fastest growing brands are, what you're drinking now, Tread Lightly, and our Hazed Confused is something that right now, we just can't make fast enough.
That's so cool. Does this ever trip you guys out? Like, does everything, or maybe not trip out, but does it ever like surprise you that like, oh wow, like this is like dominating right now? Does it ever happen, or you make it and you're like, yeah, this is going to be the one? Kind of like a musician dropping a single, like, this is the one right here,
No, there's definitely some surprises for me for sure, and not even just with our brands. I'll see other breweries come up with things, and just because I personally don't like it or something, and then it just takes off, and you're just like, wow, I did not see that one coming. And normally it's just a simple beer too, and it just flies. Or same with some of the Moonlight Kettles we make. Some of the brewers will be like, yeah, it's not the best one we made, and that one sells out in a week. You're just like, whoa, what did we not see for that one? Yeah. So there's definitely surprises for sure.
Yeah, I can imagine.
Gary's got a big point with our Moonlight Kettle program, because we can leak things out and get a really good, holy shit, that sold out in 2 weeks versus, it's a month and we still have some inventory, and it, I think gives you some indicators on that. But, I think we're fortunate being one of the few Ontario craft breweries that has the history that we have, being 25 years, is because of that. I think because of a number of things we've done over the 25 years, people trust us. Like, people trust the brand. They know it's going to be quality. They know it's going to be flavor forward. So when we put out something new, there's that inherent trust that they say, oh, it's from Muskoka, it's tread lightly. I don't know, I'm not a light beer drinker, but I'll give it a whirl because it's Muskoka. So there's that inherent trust, but that also adds a layer of pressure or responsibility, saying that if we are going to bring something to market, then we better make sure that it's really good, because our beer drinkers trust that it's going to be, and they're it's very easy to go the other way. We talk a lot about building brands and brands being promises consistently kept, and how do you consistently keep that promise to your beer drinkers, and a lot of probably a lot of brewers can make a great beer once, but can you consistently do it over 25 years and over that that many brands? And we're lucky that we got a team with guys like Gary and on our brew team to be able to pull that off.
I love that. I think that's a really great point, because I was saying to you guys earlier that basically you guys were one of the earliest, when I was telling you about doing little stupid selfies, that's how this started. And when I just sort of went through the LCBO where I lived, and then you started with all the European lagers, and then go to the local stuff, and there wasn't that many. There's probably less than 10 Ontario breweries, I might be boosting. I'm talking 2011 here. And that's why all the things that you're talking about, both you guys are talking about, I remember all of those brands so distinctly well, because they made more of an impact back then when you're learning about beer. So I obviously closely followed everything you guys have done, and obviously more so again since this whole thing came about. But one of my favorite things about you guys is the rebrand. And I think it's great because, let's be honest, beer labels and beer branding in 2011, and not just in Ontario, here in Quebec, I lived in Toronto at the time, were pretty hot garbage. Nothing really looked fantastic. Some worse than others, but I feel like people didn't take it serious because it was really a bit more of a niche, and it was really about more what was in the can or the bottle than what it looked like. As craft beer grew, I imagine branding, like anything, got more important. So you guys did a rebrand. Do either of you remember when the rebrand was? And was there multiple rebrands? Because I'm looking at these, I guess that's Muskoka Spirit, so it is a different logo. I probably shouldn't compare it, whereas this bad boy is the kind of newer one there.
Yeah, it's the latest one that you see there on the Tread Lightly, Craig. That's a bit of I wouldn't say a rebrand, I'd say a refresh. We've tweaked the font a little bit. Sarah and the marketing team led that, just in terms of making the brand a little more current. The chair, people really associate that Muskoka chair with the beer bottle on the arm with our brand. So making that a bit more prominent and a bigger part of our logo. And we talk a lot about master brand and that halo effect. But yeah, I was there. That's when I was fortunate to come in just when we were kind of going through that. So I think Muskoka Brewery's fortunes really changed in 2008. So it was Gary and growing the brand year over year slightly, but just not being able to get to that next level, and obviously needed some major investment to do that. And Bob McDonald was having a beer up at a marina up in Muskoka, and was having a cream ale, and really thought it was an awesome beer. And I think happened to know the marina owner and said, this cream ale is awesome. And the guy said, well, Gary's looking for an investor. Why don't I hook you guys up? And that happened in 2000, probably 2007 or so. And I think they chatted a lot and they got together. And then, Bob became the majority owner of Muskoka Brewery in 2008. And I think that's really when our fortunes changed. Bob had a vision for the brand and being a family-owned, iconic Canadian brand, and was very patient to say that it's not going to happen in 3 years. It's not going to happen in 10 years, and was very patient to say, we have to spend a lot of money to get there. We have to rebrand. We have to, spend money on marketing. We have to invest in a new brewery. We have to build a sales and marketing team. and knowing that the returns on those weren't going to come even 3 or 4 years down the road. So, when Bob came on board, and then I met Gary in 2010, and then I started digging in 2011. That's when we rebranded, Craig. So that the rebrand kind of was synonymous with the launch of Mad Tom, and I'm not sure particularly the egg, but that to me that put new Muskoka on the map. Like I think people always had an affinity for Muskoka Brewery, as even your experience of just a great cottage country brand, quality beer, cream ale a staple when you're at the cottage, but kind of limited to that. And then maybe a bit old school in terms of styles. And then when the rebrand hit, and we used an agency out of Toronto called Rethink, they really helped us with that at that point. So invested heavily to do that. When Mad Tom hit that spring, I think we first started shipping in February 2011. That felt like we brought a whole bunch of new beer drinkers into the Muskoka family, and they're like, wow, this is a bit of a different Muskoka. And I think a lot of people sat up and took notice of the brewery then, and I think that just led to other things. But so it was really probably around 2008 and setting that table for what was happening. The rebrand and Mad Tom launching in 2011, I think, is what really fueled or kickstarted the journey that got us to kind of where we are now.
I love that. I remember specifically that Mad Tom was like, whoa, like at the time it was, when the bitterness wars were kind of happening, and everyone just wanted that like tongue punch in the face, that tongue scraping, piney, resinous thing. And I remember, I imagine to all of us, I haven't had Mad Tom, well, no, I had a few months ago, but like, it's not no beer, Sierra Nevada used to blow our minds too, type of thing. And then, but at the time when we weren't used to it, I remember you guys definitely being ahead of the curve, particularly locally, with a beer like that was like really pushing the boundaries of what bitterness and hops could do at a time when that was what all the kids were drinking. It was very cool. I also don't remember that being 2011. Man, all these dates are tripping me out. I really don't remember. It's crazy, huh?
It's
flying.
Seriously.
So what was, so when you say, so what was your first Muskoka beer then? What was your first experience?
I would imagine it must have been cream ale. Now, did you used to sell them in packs, like whether it was a 4-pack or some little so I must have bought the packs. Yeah, and I imagine I probably would have tried the cream ale first. I remember the dark, which would have like a dark lager. Yep.
Or dark ale, yeah.
Dark ale, sorry. Okay. So I distinctly remember that, but I do really remember, and now you're sort of refreshing my memory. I may have had it, because I feel like there must have been, like you were talking about, the refresh. That's what I'm probably thinking of because there was like a standard with the can. I think the cream ale kind of looks like it used to. When we get to that, we'll show that. But that's probably what I had in my head. And then now you've got these, the full can designs with everything. I think Detour is when that started, if I'm not mistaken. Like I felt like that one looked and felt different at the time. Yeah. But yeah, it must have been.
Yeah,
like that.
It had its own standalone for a couple of years actually. Like Detour was its own little standalone can for sure, and I think we're moving more towards that now for sure.
Yeah, I love it.
Like with the Tread Lightly, it's got its own look, kind of like the Detour there, and
yes,
not just the generic Muskoka look like it used to be. We rebranded all our IPA series too recently. So like the Haze, the Mad Tom, and the Twice as Mad, they're all the Mad Tom series now.
Yes.
So we're refreshing everything currently too as we go now.
I love it. No, you guys are definitely killing it. But yeah, I remember that distinctly. Just those, because they look so similar, and there's something about when you maybe don't know what you want, and you can go into a shelf or a fridge or whatever, and you see a bunch of things that are similar, and you sort of like, oh, okay, I like how that looks. Oh, cream ale, dark, that looks cool. You're just like, oh, I'm just gonna get them all. I remember that being a way to approach it when you don't know shit, and you just sort of like, them will do type. You know what I mean? Like, because it feels like a family, and you'll get a picture of a brewery, and it's almost better to learn more about one brewery than just cherry pick from a bunch. And at least it felt like that for me at the time. Yeah. And it really aligned.
I probably, Craig, like you, I was, coming from a company, a big macro company like Molson, the very first time, before it was launched, we were doing trials that I had a pint of Mad Tom. I was like, what the hell was, what was that? And that, the way you described it, that punch in the mouth, it was like, we used to talk about it as, we wanted this brand that if you're sitting at the bar and the tap opens and you're pouring a pint and you can actually smell it. And it's that, the nose is that. But the funny thing, we were talking about this as part of our planning, as of course, everybody's talking and you're seeing the growth in, hazies across the board is we had a hell of a time with Mad Tom when originally we were filtering it originally, and then early on it was only about a year old, and then we were one of the first to say, okay, we're going to centrifuge our ales, and we took back a whole bunch of kegs. I'm talking hundreds of kegs that summer of Mad Tom that smelled and tasted great, but it was super hazy, and bars would pour it and they'd send it back, and we'd do the QC on it, and it again, awesome nose, and tasted just like Mad Tom should in terms of that bitterness but at that point in 2011, 2012, people just weren't ready for their beer to be hazy, and so as we're talking about future trends and you're seeing the growth across the board in a bunch of different hazy categories, it's funny looking back and thinking, man, we couldn't give that stuff away for the first.
No, not at all.
It took a while, but when it took hold, it took hold.
Yeah, it definitely did. It was really strange, as I do recall. It was all about, like, even when we were making homebrew, like, it's all this muddy. It wasn't cool if it wasn't clarified. And now it's literally the opposite. Beer people, I tell you, we're crazy.
Changing daily.
How's your? Are you ready to go for a cream ale?
Literally was about to say, please, let's do it.
Works for me.
All right. Can you grab the cream ale, please, from the fridge? So this is the OG. I haven't had this in a while, and I feel like it's often helpful to talk about what a cream ale is, because I feel like it's more complex than people potentially realize, or not even complex, like it's very different to the others. Thank you, man. Do you want the lug? Yeah. Sharing with if she's getting into them. So the cream ale, this is like looking at this, it's not quite the old one, but it's reminiscent of the old. Oh, you got the old stuff. Oh, sick. Yes, that's the bad boy. Oh, you guys you're bringing them back in bottles? Yo.
For our 25th, just for the summer.
Oh, I love that. Branded glassware.
That's the original label.
That's so sick, man. Yo, we should actually talk about that after we talk about the beer. Let's definitely get into that, because that's very cool. Oh, yeah.
I'm going to drink it from the bottle because it's been a few years since I've had it from the bottle.
Yeah, man. Oh, yeah, this is glorious. So we'll get into that. Let's talk about really what is a cream ale, particularly in comparison to what we just drank, which was a lager. So this is an ale and not a lager. I believe a cream ale is a blend of two styles or something. I think
so.
Yeah.
Traditionally, a cream ale is a blend of more of an ale with more adjuncts added into it. Ours is more along the lines of a British pale ale. That's just how it was designed back in '96. Wow. I think it was actually designed before a cream ale was even defined as a cream ale when Gary originally designed it back then. Okay. So we've just rolled with it that way, and it's still rolling with the Cascades now, the Cascade Hops. And Todd, I'll let you jump on there a bit more too if you want.
Yeah, I don't think we've talked, because we get asked this lots at beer shows and stuff. Why is there lactose? Why is it a cream ale? And there's no real evidence as to which brewery kind of coined that term, a cream ale. I think it was more in relation to the mouthfeel. I think it was using the lager yeast with that beer. I think it was more about the creaminess and the silkiness of the mouthfeel than it was of people actually thinking there was lactose or cream in it. But going back, and if you look, there's no real origin to say kind of started here or started with this brewery. It was, even though this is a kind of more of a laid back English style kind of ale, it definitely, was kind of a North American coined term in terms of cream ale. And I think the genesis of this brand, when they used to talk about when we didn't have a lot of brands, was that if anything, this is a brand that's kind of reflective of cottage country, kind of laid back, easygoing, kind of approachable. Really nice if you nose it, really nice, kind of some floral notes, a little bit of toffee maybe on that. I've always loved the color of cream ale, nice amber color. It's funny because we have such a portfolio, and I'm more, an IPA guy, and so it's sometimes it's like, oh, I forgot I haven't had a cream ale in a while, and in particular when you have it on tap, fresh, it's like, wow, now I remember why I love that beer, because back then, in '96 when we launched this beer, it was pretty bold and different back then, based on lined up against a bunch of macro lagers. But now, in terms of the hop profile and stuff, obviously pretty tame. But I often refer to, you hear it a lot, as in beer. But in terms of the word balance, to me, this is a beer where there's some sweetness, some soft caramel sweetness, and a little bit of bitterness on the back, but not much. And it's a really well balanced beer, I would say, when you're talking about beer. And it also finishes really nice. So this is a beer that it's funny. You're always trying the new thing, and we're always innovation, and you're into the sours, you're into the IPAs, and I love saisons. And then it's like, wow, I haven't had a cream ale in a while. When you come back to it, you realize how much you like the beer. And really, like we talked about, this was the beer that put us on the map.
Yeah.
Original.
Definitely.
Yeah, I'm going to kind of echo Todd on that one. It's the one I'll have like at the end of the day, very randomly, but every time I have it, I was like, why don't I have this more? I just don't understand why I don't drink cream ale more. And a month later, I'll have the same conversation to myself and be like, why haven't I bought a 6-pack yet? Like, it just keeps coming back to why. And every time I drink it, so I made sure I came home with a 6-pack tonight, because it's just been too long, and I don't know why. It's even from the production standpoint, like it's our most religious beer. We know how much we need to make every time. People just buy it religiously.
Right.
It's not like a beer that's just going to take off next month and we're going to sell X amount of extra hectoliters. We know who's going to buy it, and they're going to religiously buy it. And it's kind of nice to have one of those in our portfolio for sure. I think if we were to ever get rid of cream ale, there'd be riots at our doorstep.
Yeah. They'd burn Bracebridge down.
Yeah, I think so.
Another cool thing about this beer is when Gary launched it back in '96, the very first tap handle he got, the very first place that poured it on draft, was the old station in Bracebridge. Awesome spot, food's unbelievable. It's Owen and Mike War that own the place, and to this day, it's never come off. If once the pandemic lifts and you can go there for a beer on the patio or whatever, cream ale is still on tap there 25 years later. We wanted to have a little bit of a celebration and toast, but we'll do that when we can get there. But that was the original bar that supported, and it's just I don't know if you've been at the Griffin up the hill. You probably have.
I have, yes.
Craig, it's just down the hill from that,
Yeah.
and still pouring cream ale.
I love it. I remember going to the original. Is it still there? Like in the main street of Bracebridge? I think it's not too far from Griffin. There was kind of like a shop. Yeah. And is that attached to the brewery? Or a part of it?
The old station, no, but it's kind of just around the corner and up the hill. It's like almost, spitting distance from the original brewery.
Okay.
It's right on kind of a corner with a patio. The food's really good. You remember it because it's got a big kind of tree trunk right in the middle, going right up in the middle of the building. So it
can't miss it.
It's the Griffin almost backs onto it.
Gotcha. Okay. So yeah, I went to a Griffin a couple years ago, but back in I think it was 2011, my friend and I, who was my old co-host when we were discovering beer, we did a little Ontario beer trip away from Toronto. We went down to like Guelph and whatever, all through whatever was happening. Remember when King Brewery used to exist and stuff like that? And we went up to you guys, and there was just it was like a storefront on the main street. Back and selling all the bottles. So we would have got a bunch of stuff from there. I really enjoyed that. So being that this is 25 years, this is the original beer. You're bringing back the bottles. That's the first I've heard of that. That is super cool, and I think that at a time when nostalgia is popular just in culture, like you name it, whatever thing you're into, there's a nostalgia factor, fashion and sports and music or whatever. Nostalgia's there, so I think that's really cool. Are you guys doing anything else for the 25th anniversary?
This is the part where I get too excited about stuff and I blabber, so I got to shut up. But yeah, so right, we have a bunch of really cool stuff planned. Obviously, how we activate around celebrations or parties are going to be different this summer because of what's going on in the world. But yeah, for sure, we've got some pretty cool big ball stuff coming out that's, I think, going to wow some folks. We've got a couple of pretty unique promotions going on. One of them on one of our mix packs that you'll find out some more information on in terms of tying back to the 25th and venturing off the beaten path. So yeah, there's a few things we have. Like I said, the stuff at the brewery and that we wanted to activate on the patio and the kind of the party that we would have had like we did for our 20th definitely isn't on the table, but we're gonna try to create some more excitement around actually beer and some activations in terms of promotions and keeping it kind of fun and a way for consumers to still engage even if they can't kind of make it out to the brewery.
That's great.
So we stepped into big bottles. I think our first one was maybe Harvest Ale, and that probably would have been back a 750 ml bottle, like one of these suckers.
The pop tops. Yes.
Yeah, the old swing tops.
Yes, I used to remember, bro. And you had all of them: the oddity one, the spring one, the summer ice,
double chocolate, cranberry
stout. The cranberry thing. That was the winter beard, all that stuff. Yes. Okay, so you're bringing those bad boys back.
We've kind of traditionally the last couple of years we've only had our double chocolate cranberry stout that comes out at Christmas in the big 750 ml. But part of us celebrating our heritage and coming out with some pretty cool big beers is you're going to see more 750s from us in the marketplace this year than you have in probably the past 5 or 6.
That's great. I think people are going to enjoy that. It's actually even cooler in it, like. Whilst it does suck that you can't have that proper parties and have people at the brewery to celebrate, right? But I feel like the smaller things in life are more exciting than they used to be now. Like going for a walk is the highlight of my day. Like particularly on a day like today, and like Montreal's a beautiful city, the area we're in. Like it's like, look at all the now the sticks are starting to bloom. Was the first time today we saw the things coming out and. Oh, well, let's just grab a coffee and go for a walk. Like, that's exciting. So I feel like these type of things where you're bringing back nostalgia when people don't have the same stimulus around them as before, they can actually slow down and appreciate something in a way that perhaps they would have maybe overlooked a year or two ago. Well, not a year ago, but 2 years ago. So I think there's probably some benefit in that. So it's kind of cool that you guys are really focusing on the beer, the products, that the reason why you're, beloved in the first place.
Yeah, it is why we're here too. I mean, we want the best liquid going forward, and I think we'll have some interesting things coming out this year for everyone.
I love it. Are you guys considering doing any like virtual events or anything to try, like whether people can buy like a pack of stuff and have you guys would actually be perfect to talk through a tasting or anything like that? I feel like the Muskoka crowd would be pretty keen on that.
We've already done a few things. We did a St. Patty's Day event online with a guided tasting with one of our brewers. We did a Valentine's Day one. Same idea kind of thing. You'll sign up for it. We'll ship you certain flavors, and you'll get like a guided beer tasting and recommended food pairings to go with it. And then I'll let Todd speak on what may be coming up.
We kind of jumped into that big time. Craig, we started off when the pandemic first hit last, March, April. There's a lot of people at home. We started doing these trivia nights on Thursdays, and we ended up getting, I think at a peak we had about, we had over 1,000 people. It was free. It was just, hopefully you got a beer going during it, and just a way to, I remember because, I took part in most of them as well because, we were stuck at home too. And they were Thursday nights. You ended up looking forward to Thursday night because it was, to your point before, Craig, it was a small thing. It was something to look forward to. And we encouraged everybody to order takeout from a local restaurant that night as part of the virtual trivia program. And it grew. We had a couple hundred the first week and then 400. But by the time that we were kind of coming out of this thing in late May, and stopped it, we were upwards of over 1,000. So to Gary's point, we sold packages for St. Patty's Day that sold out, for Valentine's Day that sold out, and we also have corporate packages that you can buy a corporate package for whether 25 or 100 people. We just did one for CIBC this week, where Gary, one of our brewers, and Zoe, who leads it on the marketing front, will have some fun. It's not just about the tasting; it's more than that. It's trying to add a little bit of fun and some a trivia or games or a way to kind of make it memorable. And it's amazing the response to that. To be honest with you, I think between if you back out the trivia nights at the first, even in terms of just looking at the corporate, between the corporate packages and then the occasion packages that we've sold, like on St. Patty's Days and Valentine's and stuff, I think we've sold over 1,500, to participate in that. And I think, to Gary's point, I think it's around a $50 to $60 package, and that includes, sometimes a fun wearable to wear on St. Patty's Day, like a green toque, and 6 beers and some tasting notes and a couple glasses to pour it in, and
some glasses.
And, we spent some out. We did the same thing. Like, we were so worried because part of a huge part of our success is the team that we have at the brewery, and part of working at a brewery that we're lucky to have is a tap room. And at the end of a shift or at the end of the day, being able to unwind with a beer on the patio or with folks from different functions at the brewery. And, we've missed that the past year. So we were like, how are we going to, so we had a virtual party. We made some gin cocktails and had some beers and had some trivia and some prizes and fun. And I think it was supposed to end at 9:00, and there was, I think there was still 50 or 60 people on at 10:30, 11 at night. And it's amazing. You probably think the same thing. Is like, what would we have done without this technology to be able to do what we're doing today? And we had our holiday party that way, and it still felt, at the end of the day, it still felt like we were having beers. And then we've always gone away and shut down the brewery, and every February we have our kind of corporate retreat. It's 2 or 3 days. We always go to a Muskoka resort, Deerhurst, one of our good partners, or Hidden Valley, or something to really experience, ice skating, snowshoeing, outdoor winter games, bonfires, what you should be doing in Muskoka in the winter. And we're like, now, and Kelly, who is our, people and culture director, and the HR team pulled together this virtual kind of 4-day conference with breakout rooms and tastings and comedy shows and beer education. And at the end of it, it was amazing that could still happen in that format. And the technology that we used, I think the app was called Huva, that was able to facilitate us doing that. And it felt like after the 4 days were over, it felt like we were kind of at our retreat.
That's so cool, man. You're so right, though. Like, imagine what they were doing when I think it was called the Spanish flu, like 100 years ago. Imagine what they were dealing with. Sort of, at least there was no connectivity at all, and at least you do have that. That's amazing you guys were able to make that work. I was actually going to ask, I imagine there might be some sort of difference into sort of how it was, here in Montreal. It's a bigger city. Things got pretty out of control initially, and it's fluctuated ever since. Up there in Muskoka, obviously less people, more space. Everyone has a house with yard and stuff like that. How have you guys, have you had to pivot a lot? Like, maybe you had to close a little less than maybe, because I can't even remember the last time breweries were open here. Maybe September, something like that. So like restaurants, breweries, nothing's been open since then. Patios were open in the summer, but that's basically it. So I don't even barely remember what life was like when you could pop into a brewery and have a drink. So has it, I guess, two-part question, like how was it for you guys up there, maybe just as human beings living in Muskoka, like, what was that experience like? And then how, I guess you sort of answered it as far as the pivot for you guys as far as the virtual things, but was there anything else you guys did to kind of, keep things going and obviously you were packaging everything, so it wasn't like a smaller brew pub where all of a sudden you go like, oh shit, now I need a canning machine, or that type of, you would have had completely different problems and challenges than other breweries maybe not your size.
Gary, you want to talk to the first part, and I'll tackle the second?
Yeah, for sure. The first part was living in Muskoka, right? Or was that the
yes,
bathroom?
Yeah.
The living in Muskoka has been interesting. We haven't had a whole lot of cases here for sure. The opposite side of that is we're in cottage country, and all of Toronto has a cottage here. So they've our population in Muskoka almost doubled in like 2 months. So just not alone the toilet paper problem, all the grocery stores up here were always out of food. They weren't ready for the population boom to just all spread up here so fast. But other than that, our numbers have stayed reasonably low. We're back in a full stay-at-home order now as of today, actually. So our patio's closed again. Our retail has been, like, going into our actual tap room, that's been closed since last March, so over a year now. Okay. Our patio was pretty much open for the whole summer. We just closed it yesterday, I believe, due to the stay-at-home order again. So it's been off and on with the actual patio and tap room per se. But in the back, we're a really close-knit family for everyone who's in the building. So we take all our precautions as well. So it's a tough one being on a brew house wearing a mask where you're surrounded by steam and all that fun stuff, and trying to breathe with a wet, steamy mask on. But it's for everyone, right? It's to keep everyone safe, and not just for me or someone else. It's to keep everyone in my family, my work family, everyone safe, right? So
that's it, man. Yeah, it sounds like you guys were basically, it doesn't sound that much different than to the city if you guys were dealing with the same thing. I was just wondering if maybe it was a slightly, because back last year, when it's back in the day, like things have changed so much and time doesn't move like it used to, but yeah, it almost feels like that maybe if you're in a not in the city, it was moving a little different. Like we were able to travel. We went out east in Quebec, which we'd never done before because we were kind of scared of the French because we don't speak a lot of French. And it was chill. There was like 50 cases a day here. Went to Quebec City. There was basically none. We went to Gaspésie, like right out east, like 10 hours east. Like 200 cases total, not per day, like total. Like basically, but every time you walked in anywhere, you had to wear a mask. It was the same kind of precaution. So I was just curious to maybe different places had that, but that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, same kind of thing here. Our numbers aren't crazy high. Like they're happening, but it's not like Toronto where they're getting 600-700 cases a day. But it's still all the same precautions though. Okay. No indoor shopping for retail kind of stuff.
Usual stuff. Okay, cool. So then for the brewery itself, Todd, talk to me.
Yeah, when it first hit, like for everybody, it was scary. We just kind of sent everybody home. You weren't sure. Close the tap room. We kind of through this whole thing, like even a year later, we kind of had as a kind of a leadership team, we kind of had three main priorities. First one, obviously, keep our team safe. Second one was to keep as many as on the team as employed as long as possible. And the third was, financially keep the brewery's head above water so that coming out of this thing, we can be ready to go again. And happy to say that, everybody stuck together. We didn't have to let anybody go. We just repurposed, different roles in terms of maybe, some of our event staff and stuff ended up, helping out with some direct deliveries. Like, I know you talked to a ton of different breweries. Like them, our e-commerce just took off, blew through the roof. Our curbside, we did a lot around, working with our, local hospital, so Muskoka Hospital Foundation, and Frontline Fridays, where you show up, and if you're a frontline worker and produce your card, you got a free 6-pack of cream ale or whatever. A lot of those type of initiatives. We talked about some of the virtual stuff that we did. From day one, we nobody even in the summer came inside the brewery. So we kind of knocked out a window and put out a takeout window there. We rented an Airstream trailer and put that out front by the patio and used that to sell beer and merch out of. So kind of trying to put safety first. And although, people would say, well, can we come inside the tap room and we want to go in there and shop for merch, or when are you doing brewery tours again? It was, just the upside and the risk. It was always about protecting the team, because as much as this was tough for everybody in the industry, especially a lot of our partners on the on-premise side and such good customers, we're pretty fortunate that we were able to stay open and be deemed an essential service and have, the beer stores, grocery stores, and LCBOs still selling beer. And, our life would change dramatically if COVID found its way into the brewery, and kind of right from day one, we've kind of been locked down and super diligent there. And, I just applaud the team for, because it was them really that stuck by and really the discipline around all the new procedures, new protocols, all the new stuff everybody had to learn and go through to get there. It was all about keeping everybody safe. And we're fortunate. I think in challenging times like we've been through, because we've been around 25 years, people wanted to get in and out of stores quick. So, a lot of what we've been experiencing, as the past couple of years, is people grabbing singles and reading labels and mixing and matching, and that consumer behavior changed a little bit. People were getting the hell in and out of stores as fast as they could. So they would go and say, you know what, I know Muskoka, I love my Mad Tom, I'm grabbing a 6-pack and I'm getting out. So from that point of view, not anything we did through the pandemic. It was really, I think, just a lot of maybe goodwill and trust that we had built in the 24 years prior, that people knew that they could turn to our brand. And I always was of the mindset that through the pandemic, that people aren't necessarily going to drink more or less. I think they're just going to drink in different channels. And I think the way that the volume shook out for us anyway, compared to 2019, it kind of felt like that, Gary?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I think we were all fearing the worst last March, like think everything was going to go down, and then it went the opposite direction. To be honest, in a volume play, especially from canned goods to keg goods, it caught us off guard for sure in March, and we're just getting ready to ramp up for summer, and we're like, oh, we gotta go, we gotta make some beer, guys, we gotta get stuff in cans.
Yeah.
It took off fast, like right away, and I think it was weird. March, I think 17th is when it all happened, and we were all having a meeting, and we're like, this isn't looking good for anyone. And then 2 weeks later, we're like, wow, we need to ramp up now. We need to go. Everyone's just at home drinking cans now instead of drinking draft. But it was definitely just a weird switch, but I'm glad it went that way instead of the other way for sure.
Yeah. No, you guys were definitely well positioned. Like I was saying earlier, you already had a lot of stuff, and then I guess like you were saying, Gary, you just gotta switch from that sort of cake production to cans, which probably wouldn't have been as much of a challenge for you guys as for some other folks who may have had a lot more logistics. Like I heard, mobile canners just went through the roof.
They're huge. Yeah, I've got a buddy who works for one of them, and they're working 7 days a week nonstop, just traveling all over Ontario.
Crazy.
It's nuts.
I think the ones from Ontario come out here too.
I would imagine, yeah.
Those first few weeks were really scary. It wasn't it was a kind of a double whammy, because it wasn't necessarily that our on-premise the on-premise business, of course, dried up really quick. The tap room doors were shut. Reducing hours and closing Mondays at the LCBO, and beer store reducing hours. And on top of that, within, I think, the first 3 weeks, we took back almost $100,000 in kegs that we ate. We took that back, and that just added to this is not a good situation. And then to Gary's point, bit of a really tough April, and weren't sure. And then the weather started to turn, and I think people realized that they were maybe in for the long haul, and a bit of pantry loading maybe went on at that point too, as they realized they were going to be stuck there for a while. And then we're fortunate to have a good weather summer. That, you say whatever you want about great marketing or programming or whatever, but nothing beats a good old fashioned hot summer, and we had one of those last year. So when it, like to Gary's point, when it came roaring back in towards the May long weekend into June, it was like the floodgates opened, and it was like that pretty much the whole summer.
Wow.
But it was the unknowns the first 6 weeks or 8 weeks.
Yeah, man.
I mean, I think back on that time, and you just didn't know what tomorrow was going to bring.
Yeah, it's so crazy. It's like we're so desensitized to it all now. We're just like, all right, well, I guess this is what it is, and there's no kind of end in sight. So we're all kind of just, used to it. Did you guys sorry, that is such an incredible number for the volume of kegs you took back. Were you able to I heard some breweries were able to repurpose the kegs into crowlers or cans or something. Were you able to at least do that, or was that like either dumped or staff beers or something?
Go ahead, Gary. You kind of led that project.
Yeah, we were able to save a fair amount there. Again, just trying to repurpose it in different channels. Obviously not sending it to retail. We did eat a big chunk of it. I'm sure the bars were very happy that we were going to bring them back for them. But we were able to save a few things. Save a few. It's same thing with the growlers and going that way.
Okay.
Yeah, it's. I know a lot of. I think BAOS was one they were sending it out to be distilled and stuff, and we had a bread maker contact us too to see if they could have some to make bread, but they just weren't ready for the volume that we would have had, so that didn't pan out, unfortunately.
Jeez. Well, at least you're able to save some of it, because that is an astonishing number. Crazy times. Look, we've been like chatting hard and not moving through these beers quick enough. You want to move?
I was going to say, yeah, I think we need the next one.
What are we doing, boys?
I think we'll go with the Blueberry Treasure here.
Alrighty.
Get a little sweet tooth going.
Perfect. I'm going to go to the washroom, so I'll grab it. This is, I think is it the fourth or fifth beer in this series? Is that right?
This is the fourth one. Yep.
The fourth one. All right, I'm gonna go grab it and use the washroom. I'll be back in like 30 seconds. But do you want to maybe just talk about the series maybe first, and just explain what is the Kawartha Dairy collab and what this is? That would be great. I'll be back in a sec.
Absolutely, Todd. If you just want to touch on what the collab is, and I can touch on the growth of where we went, the 4 collabs with them, and I can speak about this one as well.
I guess year 4. So it all started through a friendship of Craig Prentice, who led the sales team for a while at Muskoka Brewery, and is a big part of our journey. And he had a good friend, I think a fishing buddy, on a trip that was at Kawartha Dairy, and 2 kind of iconic cottage country brands. Craig and I had been to a number of beer shows. At that point, we were selling in New York State, spending time down there, and I think it was Ben and Jerry's. I think was it New Belgium. I think maybe had a Ben and Jerry's ice cream.
I think so, yeah.
We tried that, and immediately we kind of looked at each other, and Craig said maybe that's time that we reach out to my contact at Brewer. And they're just a nice, family-run business, high quality. If you try their ice cream, it speaks for itself. Pretty unbelievable, and especially in any of it, like with Blueberry Treasure, a scoop of it as a beer float is awesome. And we just hit it off. We just hit it off with the folks. They're in Bob Cajun. We did a road trip, met with them, tasted a whack of ice cream. That's another tough day at the office. They came to the brewery, sampled some different beers, and then we went from there. And I'm trying to remember, our very first beer, Gary, that we did with them was what?
Salty caramel truffle.
Ooh,
right.
Yes.
And key lime pie last year, and then the
Black Raspberry Thunder.
That was the one.
Black Raspberry Thunder. So all different styles, all kind of going into that, and hopefully, and Gary's going to walk you through the beer here in a minute, Craig.
Yes.
Really, it's not just a blueberry beer. It had to reflect the ice cream. It had to with all those beers, it wasn't just about, because like last year it was key lime, that it's a lime beer. No, it's got to reflect key lime pie. It has to have that sweetness, and it has to have the graham cracker, and you have to taste it all. It has to be a real reflection of the ice cream, and the brew team's done an awesome job with this one too. I think nailing it. So I'll turn it over to you, Gary, to talk about this one.
Yes, please.
Yeah, absolutely. So we usually sit around a big table and look at all the ice cream brands that they have and say, well, which one can we make into a beer? And Todd and the SLT team kind of gave me an option. I was like, well, I think we could go Blueberry Treasure this year. It sounds beerable, I guess. And after eating the ice cream, it was it's a very sweet ice cream, vanilla forward, with cups of blueberry and pomegranate, and then swirls of cream cheese. So like really creamy, really decadent. So just trying to get the blueberry to pop, and this was the main thing, and then trying to get that touch of tartness from the pomegranate, but mainly just getting that real creamy finish, like the ice cream with the lactose and the flaked oats. And just trying to nail that color too. Like we really want it to be blueberry. Everyone thinks blueberry is blue, but
it's not.
If you drink any blueberry juice, yeah.
It does not look like this at all.
Cheers.
It's a very light, heavy beer.
Cheers, boys. Appreciate you. This is great. When this first came out, this is just something really stupid, but my friend Nathan, who's our lead blogger, and we were heavy into lactose when milkshake IPAs came out. So we made a Twitter account called Team Lactose, mostly just to kind of piss off the purists who used to get mad about anything with lactose. I feel like that the purist anger has moved to smoothie sours and other things right now. So I remember you guys being kind of a little earlier on the milkshake train, because I feel like a lot of breweries didn't really do it at first. So I remember the salted caramel, I remember the blackberry super, and the key lime. I had both of those many times. So it was really cool to see. I feel like you guys are one of the few to do it at scale, I guess is probably what I'm saying as well. A lot of people just did little small batch one-offs and stuff like that, which is great. But you guys pushed the lactose movement forward, and I appreciate you for it.
We're probably all in this business for a reason, and a lot, it's a fun industry. The relationships, the people you meet, the places you go, it's funny. I was tuning in. I really enjoyed your chat with Mike and Chris from the Craft Brand Co. and talking about beer karma and how things come around and how you're treated when you travel and how it's completely, how you collaborate and how you work together. And once you go somewhere and they find out you're with a brewery, how you're treated and taken care of. And, this is one of these things, all 4 years of this beer, it's really been about the fun. Like, it's not rocket science. It's about us, like Gary said, getting together with the guys from Kawartha, having some ice cream, having some beers, and trying to not take it too seriously and saying, let's have some fun with it. And, we've done it different ways. This Blueberry Treasure is actually one of their best-selling ice creams, so it's a nice. But last year we did a bit of a different route with key lime pie. They didn't have a key lime pie ice cream, so we launched a key lime pie beer, and then they launched the key lime pie ice cream for the summer. So it was kind of new for both. So we've kind of done both, where we've tapped into one of their maybe an ice cream that's been around for a while, or gone this route. This one's super delicious.
Yeah, I'm loving it. It's super soft. I'm just writing a couple of little single word tasting notes here. Like, it's very soft here. The sweetness from the lactose, like, it gives it a bit of body, but you haven't kind of like, back in the day I would have been like, yeah, just pour all the lactose in, but in reality it's ridiculous. I like that you guys didn't go, you kept it kind of soft. You've complemented the body. I mean, it's only 5%, so it's like super light. But the lactose gives it just that touch, bit of a boost with a little bit of sweetness, but you really kept it subtle, which I genuinely appreciate, and it complements. I feel like the lactose brings out lets the fruit shine a little bit more for some reason. It provides a bit of a base. Maybe Gary, you could say if I'm wrong there or not, but I kind of feel like with fruits like blueberry and like there's a touch of pomegranate, you were saying, like does the lactose give it like a bit of a blank canvas to kind of help it shine a little bit?
It depends on the amount of lactose, and I think it's
Right.
like what you said. We tried to balance this one out as much where it wasn't overly sweet, and then a lot of styles like this, a lot of people go heavy vanilla. We just try to keep that vanilla
Subtle vanilla.
just as a touch. Yeah, like vanilla can go so hard so fast. We just wanted balance, and I think it still has to be a beer at the same time too. So you have to keep that balance, and I think it turned out really well. And I just can't get over the color of it, to be honest. I could look at it all day long.
No, it's gorgeous, man. Is this going to be a series that you guys are going to continue to do? I mean, now you're 4 years deep, but it's seems to be a thing.
As long as you're talking about ice creams, we were talking about that in our planning. They've got a lot of great ice cream, and so yeah, it's a great. Now there's no shared revenue, or there's not a signed contract. There's nothing like that. It's just a handshake agreement of two kind of cottage country brands, coming together to maybe have some fun and make a bit of news and have some launch a good beer. And the folks at Kawartha are just as on board as us. We always send over a bunch of cases to their staff, and they get behind it pretty quick too. So we see it. I'm not sure the runway on something like that, but if you Google, you go on Kawartha Dairy's website, there's still a few flavors to go, I would say.
I love that. I feel like now it's like 4 years straight, even if it is like a once off. I think there's something kind of cool about that you've kept it to, you've kept it a regular thing. It's local. It's, you've kept it about the region, which is authentic to the brand, I would imagine too, and something that you guys really stand behind, that there's a real relationship there. So the whole project is authentic, and I imagine that there's a lot of people who would be pretty upset if you guys pulled it as well at this point.
I know we get every year after, like, say, Black Raspberry Thunder, it was done. Once it was done, and we still get calls on Black Raspberry Thunder or Salty Caramel every year. It's like, we want this one back. Well, we got to do something new.
Yeah.
But no, it's great working with Kawartha Dairy. They're a great company to work with. I feel like they're what we are, just in the ice cream world, and even working with their staff, getting like there's actually the blueberry, cranberry, vanilla cups in the beer. So getting those cups from them has always been easy and a blast, and working with them.
So blueberry, cranberry, vanilla cups, so like a waffle cone?
Yep.
Wow.
No, it's like a little chocolate cup, like kind of like a little Reese's cup, but just white chocolate and blueberry and pomegranate.
No shit. That's crazy. Okay. I was going to actually ask, which maybe it probably isn't, but you don't actually put the ice cream in there. You try to recreate the flavor. I imagine ice cream would just mess it up. Probably too oily or whatever.
Yeah, you don't want the ice cream in there, but I tried to tie in some of their ingredients as well, just to bring it full circle kind of thing, for sure. And I think the blueberry cups were the right way to go.
Yeah. What does it actually deliver? Is it like subtle?
There's a lot more other stuff in there, so I don't know if it actually added a whole lot, but it's in there to be in there. But it worked out to be like 60 kilograms of these little cups. Jeez. I don't know if 60 kilograms went into every batch, because I'm sure some brewers took some handfuls and ate them as they were walking to the brew house. But it's good. You could smell them as they're going into the kettle. I don't know if a lot came through to the finished product, just because there's a lot of blueberry puree and pomegranate puree, lactose, vanilla. There's a lot going on in there as well, so it's hard to say if that is coming through, because all of those flavors are meant to bring that through as well, right? So
no, totally.
And if we get through this thing and we get our patio open again, Craig, like with the other three Kawartha launches, we do floats at the brewery. So we have the ice cream at the tap room, and you can order floats. And
how's that?
It's pretty awesome.
Yeah.
Hot summer day in a patio and a beer float. You can't go wrong.
Oof, I don't think I've ever had a beer float before, and even more so, a beer float with a beer that was made from the ice cream, and you put that ice cream.
A beer float.
A beer float. That's so sick. That's
your big project for the summer.
I'm trying to get out. We're trying to look for something right now. We want, I guess we're still like we're idiots because we're trying to book something for say July because we weren't sure what was going to happen. We're like, oh, I wonder if we could go somewhere. And my partner, who's our podcast producer, it's her birthday in July, so it'd be nice to get to a cottage and something like that. We tried to just look at a few and just like it's just everything's grayed out for July. Like everything's already kind of booked, so we didn't know what to do. I imagine Muskoka's probably booked out heavily.
Same thing. Hearing.
Oh, it's been nuts for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, because that's the only safe thing to do, right? You just get a nice little place near a lake or something, and
you're still secluded, but you're away. Yep.
But you're away, so just a different change of pace. You just bring a bunch of stuff from home.
Absolutely. I booked a week trip in the summer, a little farther up north for camping, and like it was with Ontario Parks, and you have to be on the website at like 6 o'clock in the morning, trying to fight to get the site you want. It's insane right now. Just trying to get all those things booked. It's nuts.
Jeez. Yeah, I didn't. I was like, I wonder if people are going to do it because, like we were saying earlier, there's so much uncertainty just across the board. So it was kind of like, maybe things will maybe looking good. You know, in January, 2-3 months ago, we're kind of like, maybe things will be okay by May, June. You never know. Like. Obviously not. So, you wait a little bit and then maybe I bet this stuff was probably mostly booked out like winter last year, like December type of thing. People were already booked for July type of thing and didn't consider it. But that would be the optimal way. I haven't been up to Muskoka for a while actually. So that was one of our like, should we go up to Ontario? Because I don't know enough of the different particularly here in Quebec. I know kind of Jack. I know a little bit more. I've been to Muskoka a few times, but it's been a while. But I know that's more, there seems to be a ton of lakes. So hopefully there's some places, but yes, I guess that's what everyone's doing this summer. Yeah,
it definitely seems like it.
It was actually almost funny to me that you guys live where all the city people are trying to be, and then you guys are trying to go somewhere even more remote.
Farther, farther away from them.
It's kind of part
of my lifestyle.
Hey man, it makes sense. I love that. Speaking of the different regions, one new thing you guys are doing, which kind of blew my mind, and Val, who's from your, is Val on the social?
Yeah, Val's on our
PR.
Okay, so
PR social, yeah.
Yes, she's fantastic, and she just casually dropped that you guys are moving into Quebec this month, which is kind of wild because I've lived here for coming up on, I think 8 or 9 years, 2012. What's that? That's 9 years. Jesus Christ. And the thing about Quebec is it's mostly local. We have a little crazy laws here as far as getting that in. And there's probably, I can count on one hand the amount of out of province breweries, maybe two hands tops, aside from macro stuff, within the country, that we're able to get in here. So the fact that you guys are about to move in here is fantastic news. And I think Quebec beer drinkers will be pretty stoked to hear about that. So could you guys tell us what's going on? What are the dates? What beers are coming? Where can they find them? What's happening? That's awesome.
Yeah, we're pretty fired up because it's been a long time coming. We always felt we've always exported to other provinces, and it's kind of felt funny to us for a long time that we jump over, the second most populous province in the country to sell beer in Nova Scotia, New Brunswick, and Newfoundland and PI, and we do quite well in those markets, particularly Newfoundland, and they love their Mad Tom on the rock, right from day one. Yeah, there's a big beer club out there, and they got a hold of Mad Tom early days, and have been great, and we've done lots of stuff, but it's been funny because we're right beside Quebec, and obviously Montreal is a big city, and just the potential there in terms of the growth and the volume. But we never know to crack that nut or find the right partner to crack that nut with. So we're with a company called CDL, and Michelle leads that with us. Ross Buchanan, who's our vice president of sales, it's been the better part of, like I say, probably we've been talking about it for 3 years, but probably first meeting with the SAQ and starting to get the ball rolling, probably 2.5 years ago, and and now finally getting all the approvals and everything we needed. We've actually hired, as of last week, we've hired our first sales rep in Quebec, Robbie. He lives in Gatineau. So he just started this week. I just met him. He's awesome, and he's taking everything in. And so we're gonna, we're taking a lot of, we're saying it's tough during the pandemic of not being able to just get into the market and ride along with some reps and meet some customers and get the lay of the land. It's tough. So we're really relying on CDL, who are our partners there, and Michelle and their team to kind of point us the right way in terms of where we need to be in terms of depanners and gas stations and grocery and what are the channels. But we're going to lead with our IPA family. So we're coming in with Detour, Mad Tom, Hazed Confused, and Twice as Mad.
Nice.
We're hearing that there's a continued big appetite for really good quality IPAs in the Quebec market, and lots of lager options and other options, and so we felt that if we were going to kind of enter and step into that market, we needed to do it with our best foot forward, and we're really proud of what we do with our IPA family and Mad Tom, and you're going to see more of that in the future. But those are the 4 brands we're going to come with. Everything is kind of on track right now, and we're hoping to have actually our first shipment go out, and hopefully on the shelves sometime within the first 2 weeks of May.
That's amazing. I love that. I think that's a great plan as far as getting the IPA family out here. We were talking about this offline earlier. I feel like there isn't a huge presence of Ontario breweries out here. It's really like if you think Ontario, I can think of 2, maybe 3 that are here. So I think it'll be super interesting. My theory is that just because people can't travel now, they're looking for something new. And now that even between provinces, it's a little sketch, being that Ontario, you guys are pushing over 3,000 cases a day. I just saw today Quebec is back to 1,600 when we were at 600 like a week or 2 ago. So it's all kind of pretty shitty times right there. So because people can't travel, that appetite for something new has never left, and you guys are really scratching that itch over here with what you're doing, because it's a high quality West Coast IPAs with the Mad Tom series that I feel like West Coast is being more appreciated when they come out. People are like, because it's like a change of pace from the New Englands that I guess running the market right now. The Hazed Confused, I think, is one of the best year-round New England IPAs, particularly available in the LCBO in Ontario for sure. So I think people are really going to enjoy that one. So I think it's a great look to come in here with those beers, and then as you go, I imagine you'll be able to have the opportunity to add more brands through. Is that usually how it works?
Yeah, we kind of same thing. Walk before we run, and really make sure that we're not biting off more than we can chew, and understand the customers and build that relationship with our partners at CDL, and it's hopefully those insights, Craig, that I heard this term, and I thought it was good. We talked about it as part of our planning session, and it's called domestic hedonism. Domestic hedonism. Okay. Yeah. People are still staying at home, but they want to go a bit wild, and they want to treat themselves. They've done without, and they felt that they've been deprived, and it's been a tough year for everybody, and they want to let loose a little bit, and maybe that let loose doesn't mean maybe they still have to be at home to let loose, and that may mean discovery and trying new brands and an appetite to try something new. So yeah, we're hoping. It's been the other thing for us was all of our cans on our core brands, we don't do wraps. They're printed cans. So you have to do significant volumes of those cans. So we started making that switch into our core brands being bilingual, like a year and a half ago, in preparation for coming to Quebec and coming into Quebec the right way. So it's something that so it goes to show how, in terms of your question before, Craig, on advanced planning and how far do you have to be out ahead of things. The brands that we were bringing there, we knew even a couple of years back that we needed to make that switch, and it's significant when you look at the packaging and volumes that you do. So, but it's the right way to come to the market for sure.
I can imagine. On that very convenient segue note, shall we jump into the next? Would that be Hazed?
Yeah, I think you read my mind on to talking about the IPA series, and yeah, it would be Hazed. I'm just going to rinse my glass out real quick here.
Of course. Thank you, Hazed Confused. Thank you so much. So this beer was a big. Not, I was gonna say surprise. I don't know if surprise is the word. I've been super impressed by this beer. I'm I'm a big fan of New England IPAs, and typically the ones that make it to the LCBO, it's a little tougher to the LCBOs don't always treat these beers with the respect that they deserve. And since you guys have done this, how long has it been now?
So this brand actually has a bit of a story behind it, Craig, and it's changed our kind of approach. So this brand was actually born in May of 2017.
Okay.
So think about that. That was 4 years ago, and it's kind of hitting its stride now. So it was part of our. I'm not sure how familiar you are with our Moonlight Kettle program.
I'm super familiar. Yes, sir.
Yeah. So we kind of kicked off that program back in 2015. For those listeners that don't know what it is, it's we under the the guise of the full moon, once a month we kind of we make something fun and innovative, gloves off, sky's the limit, whatever you want to do. We pair a brewer up with two other people from the brewery. You got to submit your names. Usually there's a bit of a waiting list because we're working sometimes more than a year in advance because this has been going on since 2015. So it could be someone from finance, marketing, sales, operations, whatever. We give you $100 and then you go for lunch. So the three of you go for lunch and you talk about beer. Maybe someone's been to Belgium, maybe someone has traveled to the States and tried something really cool, or Germany, and they want to try that. And then, they pick the names, as long as it's not offensive. They pick the style. They work with Gary and the brew team to develop the recipe. And we launch it kind of in small batches. This year we launched some bigger batches in the LCBO. Probably going back to the DNA of what Moonlight Kettle is, and it's really unique, one-off, staff-driven. And the reality is some stuff's really good and hits a home run, like Hazed Confused, and some stuff isn't, and it goes away after a month. And that's part of the innovation experimental process. So what happened traditionally, and what I'm trying to get to is, we had this brand in May of 2017. It was a Moonlight Kettle brand. So traditionally what would happen is we sell in small batches. It would sell out within the month, which this did. Mm-hmm. We realized, oh, wow, there's something going on here back in 2017 with this hazy beer. The following year, we put it in our mixer pack. And then if it did well in the mixer, we got good feedback in year 3, we'd launch it as a standalone brand. So, really, we rebranded this year. The name stayed the same, but we rebranded to tie it closer to the Mad Tom family. But when you think about it, it almost took us 4 years from the time that we first drank this beer to get it to market, which isn't the pace that the business is moving and how quick things are coming to market. We realized we had to change that up, and now, if we're confident on something, we take a bit of a leap of faith and we're kind of launching it the next year, which, we've done with, a number of brands since. And it's real bragging rights. If you go from having a kind of a unique one-off paper label, only sold in the tap room, to, a full-scale brand like Hazed Confused, it's a bit of bragging rights. So this beer for us, this is probably, if you polled our staff of 120, this beer would win in terms of, what's your go-to beer. I think right now for our staff, I think Gary would agree, this is probably the go-to beer. So I love the way this pours. It's a big, soft orange glow, big haze. Usually has a big frothy head. Awesome nose. Really a little bit of sweetness and maltiness actually up front. Really silky mouthfeel, and then you get the hops stick in. You get that kind of juicy citrus, whether tangerine, orange, apricot kick, and a little bit of bitterness at the back end, but definitely not your, of course, West Coast style IPA bitterness you get in Mad Tom, as it's a New England IPA. And we really love this beer. It's I think the team has done a good job. I think the biggest challenge on this beer, and maybe I'll turn it over to you, Gary, from you've got more experience than me on the technical side, is as we tried to ramp up, and this is now a core brand for us and a big, hopefully a big future volume driver for us, because we really believe in the beer, is as we started to build and grow that volume, and sometimes we'd be weeks to get to there, we'd be weeks between brews, the yeast, I think the Foggy London presented some challenges to get to this point, right, Gary?
Right.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, it's like any big hoppy beer, right? Like you want to enjoy it as fresh as possible. It's not gonna last as long as your lagers or anything. So we're always trying to keep it small batch, fresh, constant. But in the last year, it's just grown so much. Like doing our smaller batches, our smaller fermenters, it's tough. It's an in between size. So like going from our small fermenters to our big fermenters. A big fermenter is almost too much. A small fermenter is too little. If we go with a big fermenter, we're not going to brew it weekly, and then like the yeast strain itself it doesn't store well. So like if we don't brew it weekly, then we have to go buy a new yeast strain. So it's good that it's growing now, because we can actually consistently do large fermenters of it or large batches, and still keep it fresh almost weekly per se, instead of having a 2-month-old one. Like we want our customers to enjoy Hazed, especially Hazed Confused fresh. We want everyone to drink all our beers fresh, but especially Hazed, being that hoppy New England oxygen is going to kill that beer so fast. So we want people to enjoy that fast. So it's been a growing pain getting it to where it is, but now that it is where it is, it should make our lives a lot easier on the process side of things.
Gotcha. Has there been was there like a difference in the actual final product when you went from the smaller to the larger fermenters with scaling it up? Like basically I'm pretty sure it's basically the same thing.
No, it's kept pretty
consistent.
Pretty consistent along the lines. The original brew was quite different. Like the original Moonlight Kettle, it had Amarillo fresh hops, a bunch of different stuff, but we had to make it more production friendly once we were scaling it up, for sure. Finding full cone hopped Amarillo is not an easy task either.
No,
so once we actually scaled it up, Amarillo, Mosaic, and Mandarin of Bavaria.
Okay, hence the citrus. Okay, that makes sense.
Yeah,
citrus.
I see what you mean about the French on here. This is the move right here. I like that. It's definitely gonna save you a headache later. You already got all the key marks for here in Quebec, which is great.
I think the only thing we're missing now is the crowns, the lids. I think they have to say the tops of the lids. I think they have to say something. I think we're getting them. I think that's the only thing we're missing as of right now.
And that's it. Okay, that's good.
25-cent deposit or whatever.
Oh yeah, that thing. Yeah. Do you know what's funny? I keep everything, and I take them back to Ontario. We rent a car and go back every couple of months and just take them back to Ontario, because here is a nightmare to take back. Empties. They don't make it simple. You have to buy it from the store to take it back to there. If they don't sell it, they won't take it back. So if you're getting stuff from all over, it doesn't make it easy. But
we should be making recycling easier, not harder.
Well, that's what I'm saying. I was told that the reason they did it in Ontario was that people weren't recycling enough, so they had to give an incentive, hence the beer store situation. So I could take them back to the supermarket and I could try and bullshit them and give them a bag that has mostly Quebec stuff on the outside and just pile it with stuff on the inside, and they probably won't check. But it's just easier to take them back to the beer store where you don't have to do it. There's one, it's like an hour from here, halfway to Ottawa type of thing, which isn't too bad. Gives you a day trip. You can go to the LCB, grab some Ontario stuff, get some wine.
Hit some Ontario beers for sure.
Yeah, people here love that stuff. Like that particular store in Hawkesbury, Ontario, is a big one for for Quebec people just wanting to grab a bunch of stuff. And we talked about it funnily enough, with Mike and Chris from Craft Brand Co. And I had a couple people hit me up like, "Yo, I'm here now. Like, what should I get?" Like, "All right, let me hook you up." Yeah, it's great. But I feel like people are going to really enjoy this. So I think this is super exciting. So I'm glad that we got to talk about this here, because yeah, like you were saying, I like that the whole treat thing in a time when, yeah, not much is exciting that's going on, and the most exciting thing you can do is get a product from somewhere else, like you said, that you haven't tried before. It's a little bit exotic to you. I think that's great, and people are super into that, and it saves them having to travel, and it's got both languages on there, so everybody can understand, and it's these bad boys will definitely stand out on the shelf here, because people would not have seen these before, which I love. It's
we're excited about that can, Craig. When we realized we wanted to be a full-time brand, it kind of came into the LCBO as a moonlight kettle. It was a black can. It was still called Hazed Confused, but the branding was more aligned to Moonlight Kettle, and Sarah and the marketing team, in terms of Mad Tom, we want to link Mad Tom to our IPA family. If you look at Twice as Mad, Mad Tom, Hazed Confused. Mad Tom is a character. He's a bit brash and crusty and has an attitude, and I think the character was created in terms of maybe being a bit of a bitter guy, which is really reflective of that first West Coast IPA beer that we launched, in terms of being bitter. So Mad Tom still has an attitude, but we're having some fun with him, and we're taking him across. So we rebranded this. It came out I guess later last year, and I think it really pops on shelf. Everybody loves what's in the can, and that was never in doubt. And I just think that the can now better reflects what you're going to get in terms of that package. So we're really excited, hopefully, about what Hazed Confused is going to do in the Quebec market.
Yeah, I love that. The rebrand, that's a great kind of segue to that. I remember, I guess it was only probably like late last year, where the new ones came out for these three only. Is that correct? It was Hazed, Mad Tom, and Double Mad. Yep. Yeah. Where did that rebrand come from? Because I guess Mad Tom was kind of that cream ale kind of style with this thing at the top, and this is, like I said, the new school version of it, but it was sort of in a can similar to this. Hazed had the black one. I was just checking on Untapped as you were telling me about it here and trying to see which one I had. So I had the Moonlight Kettle 2018 version.
Okay.
So I guess I don't think I got the 20. When I searched for the word Muskoka Haze, they're the only ones that come up. So I definitely tried that when it was the if people can see that, like the black can, like that.
Yep.
Yeah, like that. Bad
yeah,
boy.
That would have been the first released LCBO for it.
Yeah.
And that would have been in the Survivor pack, I think.
That sounds about right.
Yep.
Yes, sir.
Yep.
That had Luna Haze, and it had that was a fire pack actually, and that was the one that blew my mind.
Oh yeah, the Hopsonic. Yeah, the Hopsonic.
Yeah,
pack.
the Hopsonic pack. Yo, that shit was so fire, and because a brewery at your scale that is I would argue that I would probably, if someone asked me, I would call Muskoka a gateway brewery with a complete level of respect. I feel like gateway breweries are the most underrated, underrespected breweries in craft beer, because the breweries that appeal to those who are who are drinking coolers and Molson or whatever and want to come to craft, and it kind of gives them that bridge across. So you guys allow them the bridge with brands like Treadlock and the Cream Ale and things like, and the craft lager, which is available in a lot of places. That it's the only craft option alongside a bunch of I've seen it before in Newmarket. There was a pub. My friend got married and we went to a bar afterwards. We all got pictures of craft lager because that was the main thing that was on tap aside from all the macros. So I was like, it was one of the first times I realized the point of that beer, and the point was to be like, no. See, look, we're from here, man. Come try this, and like see how much flavor's in this, and it's made locally, and you're investing in the community.
They're a good point, Craig. I'd be interested to get your thoughts on, because, even in terms of, getting on with you and finally being able to have a chat, it's like, I get it and we get it. We talk a lot about it as a team of Muskoka. We've been around for 25 years. We're not the cool new kid on the block. There's so many, good breweries, Fairweather, Godspeed, like they're in Ontario and in Canada. Like there's just a ton of, and we look to a lot of those guys for inspiration too, and they push us. So sometimes it feels like, being around for as long as you are, you need to continue to innovate. We have core brands and maybe, older horses in our stable like Cream Ale that kind of still chug along, but it's really important that we keep innovating and stuff. And I'll never forget, it was before the pandemic, a couple of years back. I think I was meeting Ren actually for a beer, and it was at a craft beer bar in Kitchener, and they probably had 20, 25 beers on tap, and they didn't have Muskoka, and I said, I got some great selection here. Just curious on Muskoka. Would you ever think of putting Muskoka on tap? And he's like, nah, you guys are too big. And I thought that's so Canadian of it. It's like I think of some really big breweries down in the States that maybe don't have that, like Stone or Dogfish Head, or there's a whole, you name them. We're minuscule compared to those breweries.
Oh, absolutely.
And it feels like
it's like a stigma almost.
In a way, we gotta apologize for. You've talked about it before on your podcast about it's the balance between the, we're in this business because we love it, and the artisanal part of it, and the creative part of it, and the relationships, and the cool people in the business that you don't get in any other industry. But on the other hand, we also want to grow the business. We want to create jobs. We want to, especially in an economically, deprived area like Bracebridge. A lot of people see Muskoka in the summer when it's jammed and bustling, and the streets are packed. But ask Gary, like it's a long winter up there. There's a lot of construction jobs. There's not a lot of 12-month jobs, and we're contributing to a lot of that. We're the first brewery in Canada to pay a living wage, and sometimes it feels like you sometimes get lost in the shuffle because there's so much other good news out there. There's so many other cool innovations and cool new breweries, and you get left behind a little bit sometimes. And I think that forces you to come out with new stuff, to continue to innovate, and to come out with bigger beers. But I'd be curious as to your thoughts, because you definitely feel sometimes that, like that conversation I had with that bar in Kitchener, that you're apologizing for growing.
It's a really great point. I think the moment I realized you guys were as big as you were, it was either last year or the year before. We were in Toronto, and we got off at Queen Street station on the TTC, and there was a Muskoka, like the billboard thing, and we were like, oh fuck, they got like TTC billboard money, like oh shit, and it blew. Like I thought I should know better. Like this is kind of what we do, and I was like, I didn't realize. And I own a business, right? So I feel like the main thing about craft beer is that some people don't forget that this is a business. So I look at that and I was impressed and be like, I get it now. I mean, we've been dealing with Sarah before when she was running social, and then Val, and they've been so lovely and so professional. And we own a social media agency. So when I see a company, a brewery specifically that has dedicated marketing, dedicated social media, I'm like, oh, thank God you get it, because breweries don't typically get it. So there's definitely that side that I feel like maybe I'm a bit differently positioned to appreciate about you guys, and I don't see it as a bad thing in any shape or form, because beer is a business, and you obviously are doing something right. You don't get to that point where you're able to afford to chuck a thing up in literally the middle of the TTC, like one of the busiest stations, if you're not doing something right, you're not making good products. So I think there's that. I think the gateway breweries, what I was saying before, are underrated. Gateway breweries are what makes the industry run. Like all the hype and stuff is fun and it's awesome and I love it. I genuinely do, and these people are my friends, and I really enjoy it. But the breweries that are bringing new people to the industry don't get valued by the beer nerds because they're too busy looking for the next cool thing. We're already here, so you guys serve a purpose to bring people across that gate whilst also satiating them with fun stuff, like you're putting lacto, making milkshake IPAs. You're probably the biggest brewery that makes milkshake IPAs that I can think of in Canada, and doing it well. And that's what I was saying just before about the Hop Sonic Pack. I was so impressed by that because there was so many beers in different styles, whether it was the Hazed and Confused, which is definitely my favorite beer from you guys, consistent. I love the hopping, the way that you've approached it. It's kind of a little bit East meets West with that citrusy, the Mandarina, Bavaria bringing that kind of a little bit like, pithiness that's a little bit bitter, but not overly resiny, but still got the mouthfeel and that nice tropical vibe. But, doing the Lunar Haze, which is a double, 8%, which is pretty intense. And that's kind of not easy to do. I recall, I think, was one of the, what were the other two beers in that pack? No, was it 6 or 4?
It was 6.
6, yeah. So I think the other one you're probably going to refer to was Barry Springer, which was a milkshake IPA as well.
Yes,
yeah,
that one. It was just such an interesting pack, and I thought it was a great move from you guys because it's like sometimes you have to flex and show people that, hey man, like, yeah, cool, we have Cream Ale, we've been around 25 years, and we got these brands.
We can still do it though.
We can still hang with the
big, we still got
the
it.
new kids, exactly. So I feel like
I think I realized.
Please go ahead, Gary. No, please, Gary, go.
I was gonna say I think I realized what you're saying pretty close to when I started. The Moonlight Kettle program was just rolling out, and like talking to all the craft beer buddies that I have, I'd bring them all these Moonlight Kettles because originally when the Moonlight Kettle started, you could only get it at the brewery. It was such a small thing that I'd bring all these beers to my buddies down south and in the city. They're like, "Well, Muskoka Brewery doesn't make these beers. Why do you have these beers?" You're like, "What do you mean? We just make them." And then that's why now we have at least 4 releases in the LCBO just to broaden that as well. Like, just like we can do these things, guys. Just because it's not our main driver doesn't mean we don't do that. We have the minds behind to do it. We have the marketing team to market it. We have everything to do it. We just, I mean, hey, speaks for itself too. Like we do it. It's just not. I don't know what to say. It's not a. I don't know how to finish that sentence. It's not our driver, I guess.
Yeah.
Innovation is our driver for sure, but it's not our volume play.
No.
For sure.
And not every brewery is going for the volume play as well, right? Like some, the smaller ones who are dealing with the more hype stuff, they're not really going for that volume. They don't have the capacity for that. They're not trying to do that. So I feel like there's definitely a lack of maybe understanding of the way that different breweries can. I'm saying this as a marketing. I've been done marketing forever, and I understand this shit in a way that I think a lot of the people who just come into beer and not even really thinking about it are just forgetting that it's a business and that there's certain things you need to do. So things get overlooked or they're just caught up in hype and stuff like that. But I think it's. I don't know. Do you guys look at yourselves as that? Am I on the right track by considering you guys a gateway brewery that also happens to make some really great stuff? Like if I'm a craft beer nerd and I take my friend who drinks Coors to the Muskoka patio and we're sitting out there and they would be mind blown by the accessible. They have the Cream Ale, they have Treadlock, but what is this? This is crazy. And then you could slowly ramp them up. And I'm sitting there drinking Hazed and some other stuff, and I'm completely satiated as a beer nerd. You know what I mean? Like. I feel like that's how I think of you guys, and it's extremely positive. It's not anything negative in any shape or form. Is that how you see yourselves, or is that how you want to be seen, perhaps?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, we definitely talk that way in terms of some of our brands, Craig, in terms of gateway brands. And we always, for years, we talked about, that beer journey that people are on. Like, because what we talked about before is, we don't have all our eggs in one basket. We've got our volume, really spread out with, 5 or 6 kind of big horses, and then, a lot of little, and probably another 10 little ones after that. But the reality is, we don't have all our, we think because of having a portfolio like that is, hopefully there's something you like in there. You may not like IPAs, but you might like our craft lager. You might like our Detour, you may like our Shinnicket Stout, you're a stout drinker, like what is it? That hopefully somewhere along that journey, wherever you are on that journey, hopefully you have something. And for us, it's a balance. The reality is that, we realized early on that, if you look at, I think, when I started at Muskoka, craft beer was just over a 2 share. In Ontario, it's now just under a 12 share. So, when you think about that, still, 88% of people are still drinking, beer drinkers are still drinking macro brands. So, if we're going to source volume, if we're going to grow, how do you continue to, like we have successfully done with Detour and Treadlock, how do you continue to pull from that 88%, but still keep it fresh and exciting and innovative for the 12% that have been there the whole way and that love our beer and that are expecting the innovation, expecting the big beers out of us and the barrel aged stuff and the imperials because at the end of the day, whenever you meet somebody new, I was talking to a beer guy from Sweden a couple of months ago, and I guess because you lived in Ontario and you get used to the business environment, it becomes normal after a while. But when you describe, okay, here's what it's kind of like. There's 3 breweries that control a 90 share, and there's 350 that fight for the other 10 or 12. When you frame it that way, but in our minds, in Muskoka, in our team, it's like we've always felt we don't have to be one or the other. Like, how do we continue to have launches innovation like our Tread Lightly or our hard sparkling water that are going to play and pull and be a great gateway experience for people to kind of step into and maybe they start there, but then I've got, and Gary too, I've got lots of friends that would be spitting out Detour or Mad Tom 3 or 4 years ago that you stop by their house for a barbecue and they're drinking a Detour and you're like, since when did you drink Detour? And it maybe took 2 or 3 years to get there because they're like, yeah, hey Todd, I want to drink your beer, I want to drink Muskoka to support you, but the only thing I'm going to drink is your craft lager. And then next thing you know, there's a couple of years pass and there's a Mad Tom in their hand. So from that aspect, the gateway part of it's super important because
it is.
You're enabling that, right? You're enabling, but what other breweries are doing on the craft side and the cool innovation styles, and the one thing I've done personally through the pandemic is I've ordered a lot of our competitors' beers, or I wouldn't say just other craft beers online, just not only because they're cool styles I want to try and I think would be awesome, and I usually order a couple so that the brew team can try them too, is that I also want to see what their e-commerce platforms like how is that experience for me as a buyer of beer online? Like, was it really easy? Was it complicated? How did the beer arrive? What was that whole experience like compared to the experience that Muskoka is delivering? But I've kind of been doing that and kind of just handpicking every couple of weeks a brewery to do it with, and I've tried some awesome beers, and they continue as we were talking about 2022 planning and the sessions that I was in the last couple of days. We have lots of conversations about this is cool shit we're seeing on the market, and other people are bringing that, and that doesn't mean that we, because of our size, that doesn't mean that we still can't bring that stuff out. And the difference is not everything. I think maybe you would have a misconception, or people would have a misconception about, Muskoka launches it, it's got to be a big volume play. It's got to be like the next Detour or Tread Lightly, but it doesn't. Like in our forecast, we've got a lot of brands in our forecast that are maybe 30, 40, 200 hex, whatever, just one and done, because we think that's an area we want to experiment or play, and it's more about that and the branding side and the innovation side than it is the volume side.
I love that. That's what balances you guys out there. Oh, my camera froze. Let me just switch that one out. There we go. The big camera died. But I think that's what I think that's what balances everything out, is that you're bringing people into the game, which, like we were saying, like your example of you going, dude, when you said that, I can think of like 3 or 4 people that I know exactly that shat on me for the craft beer over the years, and my brother has turned I've turned my brother, and he's turned a bunch of friends, and so on and so forth, just continuously. And I'm sure I can see you nodding, Gary. I know you've done the same. Just like,
oh yeah,
leading by example, showing craft beer. And if anyone's there, back when you could be like, oh, take a sip of my beer, and you didn't get a deadly communicable disease, you could share that stuff and be like, hey man, have a sip. Oh, don't be sick. I'm like, oh wow, this is not bad. I'm like, yeah, have some of this. And that is so immensely valuable, because the industry doesn't grow if it's not for that. And there's not that many gateway breweries. If I'm really honest, there's really not that many. So that is what's driving the growth of craft beer. In the ones that are doing a hype are sick, but they're already appealing to the converted. They're preaching to the choir. The gateway breweries, and with the products that you guys have, they're the ones and that barbecue example is the best. I love that so much, and that's really what it's all about, because every time you see them, they're drinking more and more, and then those people end up converting their friends, and it's this like never-ending chain of people, because who doesn't. And then the other problem is diversity. That's another conversation, but there's a bunch of white dudes with beards that I'm disappointed, Todd, you don't have a beard, so that's okay. We'll talk about that later.
It's mask life now. You can't have beards. It's so hard
true.
with a mask.
That's true. It kind of only just
normally I've got a big one.
Yeah, got the little skin goat. That's as far as I usually go.
I respect it though. I respect it. But it's usually the 2 ways to expand craft beer is gateway by bringing macro drinkers in, and then bringing in people that aren't typically exposed to craft beer, because for some reason it's very whitewashed across the world, across the board, and it's not cool. So those are the 2 ways that you guys are most certainly contributing to that growth. And I think it's dope. Like, I've been rocking with Joel for 10 years since I've been doing this stuff, and it's just cool to see I like the evolution. That's what I really like from both the branding side, because that is one thing, and then 2, the products themselves and moving in. The Moonlight Kettle, I remember I used to get it on tap. There was a bar. We used to run an event in about 2016 at a venue called Den, which was on College at Bathurst, on the corner, pretty much next to what's the place called? What's the one on the corner with the nachos? Something D's. Starts with S.
Yeah, Sneaky D's.
Sneaky D's. My God, I don't know why I had a blank. So it was called the Den. It was next to that, and we used to go after this hip hop brunch event we used to run. We go across the street, and I forgot the name of the bar, but they always had the Moonlight Kettle stuff on tap. So I would always grab whatever they had on tap. This is 2016. I just remember always being, the cucumber goza, and like all these type of just fun things that you guys had. That was always at the time, by that time I was 5 years into beer. The podcast had begun. I was pretty beer nerdy, but still, open to different stuff. I just felt like it was just such a great series to complement the rest of the brand, and that really just hit the spot for the beer nerds. And then it's cool to see stuff like this that I personally really enjoyed, and when it became a regular, I was like, of course, well, it's fire, and people appreciate that. So you've been able to leverage that and parlay that into a core brand, and I love that. And then even better, it's going to be here in Quebec. It's just cool to see that, from I don't get to see that very often. I don't get to talk to, like I was saying earlier, a lot of folks who have been in it for so long, and who I've seen change over the years. So this is fantastic. I love it. It's a beautiful story to see. I think people might not really know all of these things.
Yeah.
Todd.
Go ahead, Gary.
I was just gonna say, the Hazed story. People ask me, like, how do you come up with a new beer? And like, it's trial and error. You got to test, and I used Hazed as a prime example. Like, it's Todd said, it's in its third or fourth year now, and like it's growing every year, and the marketing, everything's grown behind it. It's grown its own legs to stand on now, and just to keep pushing it now, and it's growing faster and faster every day. And I think that's how you grow a major brand. Is you just don't throw it out there and hope it sticks. The numbers don't lie, right? Like, if it keeps growing itself, then roll with it.
love it. No, it's also because you guys have please, Todd, go.
No, to Gary's point, it's just, we talk a lot about, because we have a pretty broad portfolio, is like, what is the white space? Like, so yeah, we could launch something, whatever, but if it's really adjacent to another brand that we have, and there's a lot of cannibalization there, then incrementally, truly, what you're doing other than kind of complicating the ops side of the business. So it's really about, doing our diligence. And as we, the funny thing is 25 years later, and I've only been here for, over 10 of the 25, but going into our 2022 planning, it's like, we're more excited than ever. When we talk about that portfolio planning, there's all these things we want to do, but we can't do all these things. So how do you get it from, we're really excited about all these things, to we can really only probably execute this many things. And it feels like, there's like, for craft, and I think the OCB is doing a great job with Scott in charge there. It just feels like, coming out of the pandemic and the optimism I think that's going to be in the marketplace and people wanting to get after it. It just feels like that, yeah, there's even after 25 years that, it feels like, in a way, it feels funny to say that, but we're just getting started, because, we're just dipping our toes in the RTD space with hard sparkling water, and, Tread Lightly's not even a year yet, and it's, one of our biggest brands, and, all this innovation that we want to bring, but where does it fit and where does it sit? It's a fun part of the planning process, and the discussions are awesome, and you have them over beers, and where the business goes, it's kind of strategic, and we look at it as kind of, what do we think for next year, but then, what would the shape of that business look like 3 years out? How's the landscape going to change? Like, if we were doing this podcast last year at this time, you asked me about how's your e-commerce business, I'd say it's about $35. And now it's a legitimate channel where we're pushing significant hectoliters. I think it's our fourth biggest volume channel now. Like, it's a legitimate channel that a year ago didn't even exist. So things are happening that quick, and it's kind of a really exciting time. It's tough under lockdown and kind of this last big push with COVID, but I think coming out, I think there's going to be some good optimism out in the market, and I think it could be a really good summer and back half for craft beer.
I love that. On that note about the e-commerce, so I'll say this even though we're live, I suggested to Val, we did this with Mike and Chris, to put together a pack of the beers that we drink tonight. I told her pretty late to be like, hey, did she tell you? Yeah. So like, even if we do it after the fact, I think that's an interesting thing, because people don't always consume podcasts and this type of long form content, either live or on the pod. They do it whenever they damn well please, right? Or whenever people are ready to consume it. So the amount of beers, I mean, we're about to go to the next one. We're already 5 deep. We're going hard tonight, boys. It's not messing around. Mad Tom next, I imagine.
I think we're there.
Yeah, I feel like we've talked about it so long, we have to bring it back.
All right.
Go grab that. So this, like I said, 2011. I didn't realize it was 2011. So I remember getting this with Scotty. People, OG BAOS folks will remember Scotty. This is a classic West Coast IPA, back when West Coast IPAs were all the rage with the kids.
They're coming back.
They're coming back, man. I'm going to go grab that. And
they're coming back.
Yeah, hell yeah, they are. Do you want to maybe tell us a bit more? Are you familiar with the story behind this beer?
Todd will probably have a bit more, but I can definitely talk about it for sure.
Yeah. I'd love to hear a little more about like when it sort of came about. Actually, I want to actually hear this because I know I got to piss, and I got to get the beer, but I do want to hear the story. At the very least, this one now, I can't believe it's 10 years. It just doesn't feel like it's been around for that long. Like It's crazy.
The whole craft beer scene has just evolved so much in that 10 years too. Like it's insane. It's like a whole different lifetime of beer since it came out. Like it's nuts.
I guess
I don't even know
particularly
what to
West
say.
Coast. Yeah, man. And I guess West Coast had that run up until 2016, I reckon. And that's when the
I'd
haze
say yeah,
started.
2016 is when it all started. I think for
For
the hazy
for the
boys.
haze. Yeah, exactly. Late 2016, and then coming in for that. I'm gonna go grab it, but do you guys want to maybe just talk a bit about the story behind like when this one came about and what the general vibe was? What like why this beer was decided that you guys were going to make this sort of really at the time. I guess we're going to find out if it's still a punch in the face, but at the time I remember just being like, oh my god, this is crazy. Yeah, and how
Yeah,
that fit in.
absolutely. And
Talk
I'll
about
let Todd takes the rein. Todd take the reins on the story for the man, the myth, the legend of Mad Tom. He can definitely give the whole backstory there.
Yeah. So 2010, I think the CBC in the States was in San Francisco at the time. That was before I started with Muskoka, and I think Gary and the team back then really saw this kind of emergence of these, super hoppy, really bitter West Coast style IPAs on the West Coast, and there was really not anything like it in Canada or Ontario at that time, and I think also maybe realizing that Muskoka needed something new and a bit of a refresh to tie into the new branding that was going to come out in 2011, and I think in terms of the stylistic, I think that was determined pretty early in terms of wanting to be a true West Coast style IPA in terms of the hop profile and the bitterness and the IBUs. But I think that the hardest part I think was naming the beer. There was lots of back and forth, and that's kind of when I first arrived on why Mad Tom, and we had some fun with it in some marketing campaigns a couple of years ago. Is why was it Mad Tom and the character and there's different stuff about there's a Mad Tom catfish that's unique to the Muskoka area. Is it about Tom Thompson, when he went mad in Algonquin Park? There's 3 or 4 different kind of myths, and we're not really going to say which one it is in terms of how we landed on the name Mad Tom, but it kind of was just something that stuck, and we went with it, and it took like Craig said, that first punch in the mouth. I felt the same thing. I was lucky when I joined Muskoka in early 2011. There was a guy still on our sales team, John Graham, and you want to talk about a guy that knows craft beer. You pretty much can go to any brewery in North America and say, John Graham, and they probably do. I went on a whole bunch of beer trips, especially in those first 5 or 6 years, and I would call John and say I'm going to Philadelphia, I'm going to Washington, I'm going to San Diego, and he'd say you got to go here and then say hi to this guy and ask for her, and John was so connected and so knowledgeable about the craft beer scene back in my early days, and 2011 to 2012, 2013, I was just kind of learning it all and figuring it all out and immersing it and drinking as much of it and seeing as much and experiencing as much of it as I could. But, John was a real big, I think, help in that process. And when it came to Mad Tom and saying, we want to kind of be the first into that on a West Coast style IPA in Ontario, it took a while. And I remember talking to some of our sales reps down in London, Andy Marshall. He's like, I can't give this stuff away. Like, no, they're not having it down
wow.
here. And it took a while, and finally places where doors were being shut opened up, and it's been a kind of a cool journey. I'll turn it over to you in a sec, Gary, maybe to talk a little bit more about the beer, because we did evolve the beer a little bit from the original Mad Tom recipe that we launched in 2011. But I was going to ask you, Craig, Do you know John Graham on our sales team? Have you
No,
met John?
no, I don't. No, I haven't.
Yeah, you gotta meet him.
Okay. So John's the man. Everyone knows John.
I was just saying in terms of my beer education and kind of getting indoctrinated early, and in terms of the craft scene, he's the guy. Him and his wife Tia, like you'll pick put a pin on a map and say I'm going to this city anywhere in North America, and he'll say you need to go here, here, and here, and ask for her, him, and her, and like he's I think all of their vacations, probably since I've known him 10 plus years, have been beer vacations. So yeah,
That's amazing.
He's been super awesome along the way, and just a great guy in terms of beer, and a good sounding board for us in terms of our beer. So maybe Gary, you can talk to kind of how Mad Tom was launched, and then kind of maybe some tweaks that we had done to the liquid.
Yeah,
absolutely. And to John Graham, every time I talk to him, I'm learning something new about the beer industry and world, which is kind of shocking for a brewer, because I think I know everything, and then you're just like, oh wow, that's actually really amazing. Why don't I talk to you more? But yeah, so Mad Tom originally came out just to be very much a West Coast IPA, 64 IBUs, Chinook Centennial, just that punch in the mouth bitterness, pine, like you're just eating a pine cone, and that's what we all loved back in the day. That bursting aroma of pine. Todd tells me every day it doesn't smell the way it used to. I think we've all just evolved as people. But obviously it's gone through some revamps to stay relevant, especially recently in the last 16 months now, I think. We brought the bitterness down a little bit. All the hops, all the malts are still the same, but we just brought the bitterness down to not be so punchy. And I think, I don't know if it was the pandemic or the recipe tweak, but Mad Tom took off again last year. I think we oversold Mad Tom than we expected by far. And I was going to kind of talk to it about earlier when you were saying how people are up packing light beers. We saw up packs and light beers, but we also saw Mad Tom just going flats like nobody's business. So I think they just wanted to get it done. But yeah, it's definitely evolved over the years, just to stay relevant. It has to, right? It's a 10-year-old beer. It's gotta stay relevant, and it's a good staple beer. It's not going anywhere. No, but I am a big fan of West Coast IPAs are coming back.
Yeah, I think they really
and I'm going to be at the forefront.
No. This was an interest, I was wanting to tell you guys, this was kind of funny to me. Do you remember, when did you reduce the bitterness? Was it in the last couple of years?
Yeah, I think it was, when was the exact date? It would have been less than 2 years for sure.
Less than 2 years, okay. So I was used to this beer being, like I was saying, punch in the mouth. And we've done a series, maybe 8 or so videos on BAOS of blind taste testing. And the idea is I'd sometimes done them by myself, and I just tend to just go into the fridge. There's a whole bunch of stuff. I tell her if there's anything she can't take, because I need to do some stuff on that, but otherwise just grab something. Yeah. So I remember doing one, I want to say it was about a year or like early 2020 or late 2019. And one of the things in the blind taste testing was Mad Tom and blind. And to be fair, I'm pretty shit at it. I've nailed a couple of them, but overall I'm not the greatest at the blind taste test. It's much harder than people think. I imagine you guys have done it a bunch, but I'm talking like blindfolded and you kind of hold your hand out and I have no clue what the hell is being served to me. I thought this was a lager, and I was extraordinarily embarrassed because of my history with this beer when I realized what it was. And I had people standing up for me strangely on YouTube comments being like, oh, it's okay, like it's a malt forward West Coast IPA, so I can see how you would confuse that. I just wanted to see if you had any thoughts on that, because I always found that annoyed. I was mad at myself for messing that up and not pick. How the hell can you mess up a West Coast IPA and confuse it for a goddamn lager? Like, come on. So I was mad at myself, but because I think it wasn't like if Todd, you were saying it's not what it used to be, and like you said, it makes sense because that bitter punch. It just people weren't looking for that anymore. So I can understand that it doesn't make sense to continue to make it that way, and all the best beers evolve anyway, so it is what it is. But maybe my can that I had was a little older, so it didn't have that piney, citrusy punch that it might have. Plus, also, you're removing a sense, and I've been tricked many a time into the style as well, so it wasn't the first time. I was just mad at myself for this specific beer because I know it so well. I'm curious if you had any thoughts on that sort of level of confusion from my dumbass.
Did you try drinking it afterwards, not blindfolded?
Yeah, of course.
Or not blind at all?
Yes, and I was like, oh my God, of course it's that. So immediately,
okay, that makes me feel a little better then.
Yeah, but it was that blind thing. I just couldn't. And drinking it again now, and I don't know if I've had it since that time. I swear it was like February, like right because I remember I had it with a friend right before everything shut down, like sort of early mid-February. So it could have been an older can potentially where that sort of punchiness had slightly dropped a little, which it happens with these type of beers, of course. But yeah, I just thought it was an interesting blind observation.
I think when we tweaked it, Craig, and then we like to Gary's point, it was more about time of hop additions. Wasn't about changing any hops around or anything. It was really about it. Hopefully it wasn't about the nose, and it wasn't about the piney, citrusy notes that you get from grapefruit, but it was more about the finish. It was more about just backing off the back end a little bit.
Yeah.
It was just, we wanted all the good things that kept Mad Tom, and then still to stay true that it's got, like, Mad Tom's still a bitter guy. It's got to be West Coast. Yes. So our IBUs came down a little bit, but it was really more about how it finished, just a little bit less on the back end because
a cleaner finish.
I see that.
Yeah, Mad Tom. It wasn't. It is kind of flatlined. It was. It was still a big volume brand for us, but it was like it wasn't growing. And I think with any, you have to do that even with an old brand like Cream Ale. I think you got to. How do you? We have those conversations even around our Detour, our biggest brand. Is it as good as it can be? Is there? We do trials on how do we actually improve Detour and stuff. I think it's an evolution, and so we tried, the version of Mad Tom that you're drinking against, the version before that had a lot similar, I would say, up front, but just I think all of us said that where the market's going, and for us personally, we like the way that this finish is a little better, and we went that way.
That makes sense. And have you seen a different response to the beer? Yeah.
Yeah, I think Gary referred to it. Mad Tom's.
Yeah, there's definitely a positive response for sure.
Interesting. Okay. Do you guys think then, in the spirit of, and I really do appreciate the fact that you guys are happy to iterate and sort of let the brands grow with the taste of the market, because I think that's super important as well, that you don't get too romantically attached to this is what Mad Tom was and it'll always be that, because when people don't care about that, it's going to disappear. Do you think it could ever, that pendulum could swing back and maybe you could just be like, oh, but people are fiending for more West Coast, piney resin, we could dial it up a little bit, or is that not a possibility for this brand?
I'm seeing more West Coast. Are you not? Is it just me, or does it feel like?
Oh, there's way more.
It feels like more that you're seeing, and
there's a thirst.
Yeah, I don't know. What do you think? Yeah, I think it's. It's funny because we talked about this before. Craig, once you have a portfolio and you drink around that portfolio, it's like, I haven't, and it's like I felt like I wasn't coming back to Mad Tom for a while, and I've probably, maybe because of the pandemic, I've probably drank more Mad Tom in the past maybe 6 or 8 months than I have in the past 3 or 4 years prior, just because I'm really liking the profile of the brand right now. Yeah, I really like it.
Yeah.
No, I agree. I think there's more West Coast coming, and I've said it 3 times already. I think West Coast are going to come back pretty strong. But with that, it's evolved once already. I don't see why it couldn't evolve again to go back to not to where it was, but even a better version than it was before. It's time keeps going, and things have to go with it, right? So
Yeah.
if that's what the market wants, then
You'd be happy to.
I personally don't see absolutely. I liked it when it was 64 IBUs. I liked it where it's at now, and I think the market will reflect that as well.
It's funny whether it's because of the pandemic and what you referred to before, Craig, is it a nostalgia thing or whatever, but it feels like, and I've had this experience with Fat Tug and Two Hearted, and it's like you go back to it and you're like you miss it. It's like, wow, this is a beer. Like, this is what kind of. It's funny because I think they've gone out of business or been sold or whatever, but I think in my early days in craft, probably back in 2011 or 2012 was one of those beer trips on the West Coast was Green Flash. I can't remember, they had this wicked West Coast IPA, and it just, to me, that embodied what an IPA should be, and it was, it really fueled that love of IPAs, and there's some good ones, and I'm kind of with Gary. You wonder if down the road, because there'd be so many on the market, is there going to be, things are sometimes cyclical. Is there going to be some hazy fatigue, and because of the nostalgia and some things that maybe the pandemic have brought on, are people going to really go back to some of those OGs or even new West Coast and say, I just, from a stylistic point of view, that's a great beer.
I like that. We were in San Francisco at the end of 2019, so a few months before the pandemic, and we went up to Russian River. I got to drink Pliny from the source, and it's just impeccable. It's just insane, and it renewed that love of West Coast IPAs in a way that it's just glorious. So I feel like even with the haze, and I'm a haze boy and self-admitted, I love it. But man, I could go for a fire-ass West Coast. You need balance. Everything's balanced, man. Like, you want the crazy tropical haze. It's beautiful, and it genuinely is great. But you need that other side. You need that, like, not necessarily want my tongue ripped off like I used to, but give me a little tap in the cheek. Give me a little chin tap. Or something.
I don't want to be knocked out on the floor, but I want a little love. I want a little love to the face.
A little something,
for sure.
A little something, yeah. I feel like, and that just shows, like you're saying, if this is selling, then people have that appetite for it. So it's really great. And then I actually wanted to ask, I don't know if we'll drink it. It's up to you guys if you want to crack it. But the Double Mad, Tom.
Oh yeah.
When did that come? Pardon?
Nightcap.
I like your thinking, Tom. As soon as I saw your face, I was like, I like this guy. He knows. When did that one come in, and what's the deal with that beer? Because I don't specifically recall, but it wasn't immediately, right? It was a little bit after.
Yeah, it was in around, I'd say 2013. Kind of maybe it started developing. It was, Mike Laba, who you spoke to from the Craft Brand Co. He was a big part of a lot of those early days at Muskoka, and him and I hit it off right off the bat, and that concept was kind of born of a few beers. I think him and I having one night saying, I think we had been on a couple of trips down to the States, and we tried some really good Imperials, and we wondered about, the line extension from Mad Tom, and that we felt that at that point there wasn't a lot of double or Imperial IPAs in Ontario, and we launched it in a bottle. It was a 4-pack. I can remember that. I remember staying at the brewery having that, and then it's been kind of a bit of a sleeper, I would say, Gary. That it's been I think maybe still is one of our highest beers on Rate Beer. It's a beer that we've never really put any marketing weight behind. It's just kind of been part of the stable. It's kind of maybe flat one year, grows a little bit one year, declines the next year. It's never been a huge volume play, but it's always been a good part of our portfolio. It's a great beer, and we talked about this again as part of looking at industry trends and what's going on. Like what's going on with Imperial IPAs in the States right now is insane, and it's the polarity that we're trying to get a handle on in terms of you're seeing almost polar opposite trends, and I don't know if the pandemic's driving that, but you're seeing this like health and wellness better for you. Tread lightly, low ABV, low cal beers, low ABV beers, super sessionable beers, growing, and then you're seeing this massive growth of big, like imperial IPAs, and it's crazy to see that how many of them, and some in the States, some of the volume that they're driving, it's almost like there's not much in the middle, but you're either like you're down there in terms of super sessionability, maybe lower ABV, maybe a better for you play, and then it's like, you know what, if I'm going to indulge, I'm not going to indulge in an average way. I'm going to indulge
going
in
hard.
a big way, and going
Just
hard.
trying to forget.
People are treating themselves and saying, if I'm not driving, I'm at home, I'm not going anywhere. I'm not going to have it on tap and get in my car and drive home. But if I want an 8% imperial, I kind of deserve it, and I'm going to treat myself to that.
Yeah, I love it. Do you know what? As you were talking, I just checked on Untapped when I first checked into it, and I don't know if you can see this here. It was July 2012. I said, love it, my fave new IPA. That was the original Mad Tom back then, and I had the twice as Mad Tom in it says here May 29th, 2013. Yeah. So, back when things were, man, I don't know, this is really cool to see, because I was like, fuck, man, this is a while back, like having this stuff.
Those were big days. Those were just, everything was exploding. It was like those were fun. That was fun.
It was. And then, like, at the time, even just the way that I wrote, like, love it, multiple exclamation marks, like, that, like, obviously had an impact. It was July 2012. This was, like, a couple weeks before I left Ontario and moved to Montreal, actually. But, obviously at the time, like, having that, knowing you can get this kind of flavor locally is meant a lot, and it was kind of mind-blowing to just be like, yo, this is crazy. I can just go to the LCBO and get this shit that's on par with the stuff we just went to Michigan for, we just went to Buffalo for, or whatever. Like, that is super cool, and I think this beer really had a big impact on the scene in Ontario, at the very least, as far as what it meant. So I love that you did do that double, and I can understand it being a sleeper, but is it still to this day, you say, your number one, like, highest rated? Or was it the time?
I think double chocolate was 2, wasn't it, Gary, for a while, like trading?
I think the double chocolate was, yeah. I don't really follow rate beer too much, to be honest.
Or like Untapped or anything. I guess it's kind of similar stuff, though, right?
I'm a brewer. I don't want to read reviews.
No, you should not read reviews. People are off there.
Nope.
It's not worth it. It really isn't. People, some of the stuff I see on here, I'm like, yo, hang on, you guys did a cognac barrel-aged version?
Yeah.
That was a long time ago.
Yo, you guys did some crazy versions of this stuff.
Yeah.
You did a ginger and grapefruit, chili peppers and Azaka hops.
Yeah.
Jesus Christ. Okay, so these are all brew pub only stuff, I imagine. Just fun stuff for the kids.
Just fun little things, yeah. Or sometimes we'll send them to the cask fests and stuff, little things like that, where all that gets put on tap, right? So
yeah, no, that's good. I love it. Do you want to do twice? We're almost 3 hours. I knew we'd be having it.
Get in India.
I like your attitude, man.
Get in India. Let's go. I got to rock a piss first, though.
Yeah, rock that. I got this. Don't worry. Yeah, guys, honestly, this tripped me out. Just seeing this, like, check-ins from back in the day. This is fucking awesome. So is it still 8.4?
Yeah. It's it hasn't changed much, to be honest with you.
So 8.4. Do you know what the hops are in this one? Ooh, yeah, look at that. Do you know what the hops are, Todd?
Yeah, I think it's got the same base as Mad Tom. We changed the recipe, and I'm trying to remember. Gary's gonna have to help me with this. Originally, when we talked about this beer, Craig, I think we had was 5 hops. Like we used 5 different hop additions in this beer, and then we kind of evolved it a little bit in terms of where we wanted to go. I think the thing with this beer that we talk about a lot is that the weird thing with this beer is that it's an imperial as opposed to Mad Tom, but because of the higher alcohol, which I think adds a little bit to the sweetness,
Okay.
is that there's people that say I don't like the sound of Mad Tom because it's too bitter, but they actually drink it's twice as mad because.
Right.
So Gary, Craig had a question in regards to hops, and I remember when we first launched this beer in 2013 because we used to talk about it in the marketing that it was 5 hops, 5 hops that we used in terms of the of course the backbone of the hops that we use in Mad Tom, but we've changed that since, right?
Yeah, it's not 5 hops anymore. It's what do we got here? We got Columbus, Cascade, and some Chinook.
Okay, like super West Coast style hops.
Yep.
We're not even messing around.
Oh yeah,
like
it's definitely geared more towards the West Coast. On paper and testing, it is a lot higher IBU than even Mad Tom, but like the alcohol is gonna hide that for sure.
Gotcha. I like that. You're not even like pretending like it's trying to be anything else. It's just straight West Coast the whole way. Yeah, I love that. Happy with that. Got to make sure we get the content along the way. Boys, cheers.
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 Okay.
Yeah, it's a bit of a super. It's just again we don't do a lot with it, but it's always it's just always there. It's we rely on it, and it does consistent volume for us. And
yeah, thank you so much. Yeah, I can see why. Like, I feel like it's super smooth. My God.
When's the last time you had one?
According to this, I thought I was pretty on top of Untapped. This actually says this was the one and only time, which was May 29th, 2013. I don't know if I believe that. Oh, and it says I had it at Palais de Congrès Montreal, which was at a beer festival here. How did I try Mad Tom at a beer festival here for the first time? That doesn't make sense. So May 29th. That was when my friend from Australia was here. We specifically were at it's called oh my God, why am I having a blank? The main beer festival in what's it called? Mondial. Beer like the world of beer.
Yeah.
Mondial de la Bière.
Yeah.
You had it.
Gary, do you remember? Because with the hops being the 3 C's, do you remember when we launched? You weren't around, I know, but do you remember what the other hops would have been?
I don't know. I think that was even changed before I got there.
Okay. Yeah, because maybe it was as different. Do you remember pouring at that festival? Like you guys were at the. That must have been pretty. Like it was.
It's a lot of festivals ago.
Yeah, it's a lot of festivals ago. Like
I was kind of blending into one big festival, but I don't know. I don't remember. Like because we weren't selling in Quebec, I would be surprised that we were usually. We'd be at a festival to kind of try to create some buzz and excitement around the beer so that we could,
sell
drive
it locally.
Yeah.
Sometimes they have these importer, like, not tents, but whatever, like desks or whatever. So they'll have stuff from elsewhere in Canada and around. So maybe I saw it. And I specifically remember that date because my friend from Australia was in town. I was living at my old place at the time. I hadn't moved here that long beforehand, like less than a year. And I must have seen it and been like, oh shit, there's like a double version, and immediately gone for that because that sounds like me. Because Mad Tom was such a big deal for me less than a year before. So if I was able to get my hands on the double version, I of course would have been super stoked for it. And at the time, we were a student, so I was like broke. We moved here, we're learning French and stuff. I was trying to just stay in the country, so I wasn't going to Ontario to be able to get it. So that kind of adds up for me. That makes sense. That actually kind of funny when you really think about it, because I remember that date it was on a bus like a
When we-
bus thing.
When we pour this, Craig, at beer shows, I remember that, maybe people would try Mad Tom and then they'd see like twice as mad and they go, that one's bitter enough for me. Like, there's no way I'm going above and beyond that. And it was like, actually, it's a little, you might find it's a little smoother and sweeter and you're
Kind
not
of
going
is.
to get the kick that you get. Yeah. So there's, like I said, there's, I know people that aren't huge fans in terms of their favorite beers, maybe not Mad Tom, but they're like, yeah, give me a twice as mad any day. I think it's that the warmth of the alcohol and a bit more sweetness that just rounds it out a little bit more, maybe.
Yeah, it definitely is a little sweeter. This is the OG. Yeah, definitely sweeter. This one's kind of piney, actually. No. So this is a little sweeter, a little less piney. I guess that piney resinous vibes.
Yep.
I'm gonna try that. As much, and you can even tell like this color is kind of like a deep. I mean, obviously the other one's fresher out the fridge, but a little more of a deeper copper amber kind of color going on there. Whereas the Twice as Mad is a little more on the golden. Yeah, right.
Yep. No, it's a lighter color for sure.
Definitely a lighter color. So it's giving me different kind of vibes. So I see exactly what you're saying, Todd. That some people who would not enjoy the pioneer sort of side of things would probably take it twice, which is dangerous. Like that's dangerous for 8.4% and to be that smooth. You guys are problematic, and I'm here for it. I love it.
It's all Gary's fault.
It's all Gary's fault. God damn it, Gary. What are you doing?
I try real hard. Someone's got to do it, right?
Someone has to do it. No, it's super cool, man. I mean, you guys, this has been really cool to get like the perspective of everything you guys are doing, and it's quite eclectic when you really think about it, from all the different styles and where it came from to where it was in the middle and where it is now. Even including just fun new additions like the sparkling hard waters and stuff like that. It's super cool. You guys are always innovating and always just doing really fun stuff. And I think what you contribute to the Ontario craft beer scene is very valuable. And I always commend you guys for it. You guys have always just been like just genuine people. And every time I've ever dealt with any, I haven't met until now. I wish I met you guys earlier, but I knew this was going to be a great conversation. I think, Todd, we were actually supposed to talk and do a podcast a few years ago. That was before Val and before Sarah. And it didn't work out. I forgot why. Because we were supposed to come up and we couldn't make it up there. It was something like that. I'm talking like 3-4 years ago. So it was something I always wanted to have you guys on, just to hear the story. Because it's, for someone like me, been doing, what the podcast has been 6 years, but the, selfie things 10 years. And at the time, 10 years ago, it doesn't sound like that long ago, but things were so different back then.
They were, yeah.
Yeah, right. Like we were saying, the few breweries that were around back then really, imprint on you, I guess, for lack of another word. And, you just really have like a permanent soft spot for that, half a dozen breweries that really introduce you to what Canadian beer could be. And to see all of, you guys going so strong after so long, it's a beautiful thing. It's not easy to make a business that successful and continue that success, particularly in a fickle industry like craft beer, and something that there isn't a shit ton of money in, that is, like you were saying, Todd, there were only 12% of, Canadian craft beer.
The whole market,
you know what? I thought 12% was the American, if I'm not mistaken. Even it could even be less here in Canada, but either way, it's not a lot.
I was talking Ontario.
You're talking Ontario. Okay, you would obviously know those figures. I remember hearing.
I think it's 11.3.
11.3. Okay, beautiful. You would know the updated one. So either way, it's barely in the double figures, right? So we have such a long way to go, and to see you guys get to the point where you're able to, have train station ads and billboards and things like that to really promote these products to the masses that are going to convert people away from these other macro brands to bring them into the craft beer family, and then work through all your brands. and find things they like, and then continue to explore. That is invaluable. Like that service is very important to the growth of craft beer, and you guys really truly deserve your flowers for that, because it's a beautiful thing, and that's why I really want to make sure we try and get people to understand is what that contribution is worth. It's worth more than most people could possibly imagine. So thank you guys for the work you do. It's genuinely appreciated.
Cheers.
For real.
Yeah,
I like that.
Thank you.
Get that in you.
Lots of good supporters along the way, and you got to do this in person. Like you gotta, whether it's on a, coming down to Montreal sometime this summer as part of a road trip and looking you up for a beer, or if you do find your way back to Ontario, and we've got a big new patio extension going on this year. We're gonna have this kind of cool, really post and beam kind of big because our patio is exposed and open, but we're gonna have this kind of enclosure where it's gonna be it's kind of a really cool kind of feeling like you're coming into the cottage Muskoka experience. So if we can get you up there, we'd love to have you and host you for a beer or two. Yeah.
I will 100% keep in touch. I have your email, so if you guys are ever in town, please let me know. I would absolutely love to meet up with you guys, even if we can only hang out in a park, because everything is closed here. But we're allowed to do that and have a beer. I know I really want to get out there. It's definitely I've always wanted to see the actual the big brewery and see what's going on out there, and check out the patio. It sounds amazing. So hopefully, if all goes well, that things will chill out, at least that the good people of Ontario and Quebec can have some sort of enjoy.
Probably since last time you were there, Craig, at least even if we'd love to give you the tour of the brewery and the changes in the expansion, but you can do a pretty good beer tour in Muskoka now. Like even probably since your last road trip, there's a few more that have popped up.
Yeah.
That's good to hear. The last time I think we were there was we did a collaboration with Sawdust City in 2018, if I'm not mistaken. So that was the last time and that's when I went to the Griffin. So that was
How were you the next morning?
It was I passed out at like 11 p.m. and I'm a vampire, so I was dead. I wanted to eat before the podcast, and he was like, no, and he didn't want to do. I love Sam to death. He's crazy. He was like, yo, I don't want to drink my beer. Let's do a bottle share for the podcast. This was back when you could hang out in person. So we were like, okay. So we brought like half a dozen beers because I didn't know, but literally the entire Sawdust staff were there. There was like 90 beers on this table, and during the podcast it was rowdy, and there was like 20 people in the room, and they were just like pouring up with the whole. I've never experienced anything like that. We're out of control, and we didn't get to eat, and then I didn't remember how we got back to where we were staying, and I was done. It was a good time.
Yeah, that's par for the course, and if you get with Sam is a lot of fun. The guys at Sawdust are doing some awesome stuff, and the Griffin on a Thursday night with Jed and Kurt and the live music, and they get that place going. Those are the things you said. Simple things. Yeah. Those are some of the things that we really miss. Just being able to hit a patio, or for those of us that spend lots of time in Bracebridge and Muskoka, the Griffin on a Thursday night with Jed and Kurt, that's a staple.
Yeah, man. Even just
it's a rough Friday morning is what that is.
Particularly for you, bro, when you got to, at the brewery at ridiculous o'clock. It's wild. No, I really want to get back. I truly appreciate both your time. Do you know what we need to do? First and foremost, we need to take a thumbnail for this video. So I'm going to take a screenshot. Do you want to hold up some beers whilst I
you want cans or beers?
Well, let's get some product placement, because I was even thinking I might go this bad boy because I have it right here. There you go. There you go. Oh, here we go. You ready? There you go.
Cheers up.
Ready? Oh, that is gorgeous. Oh my gosh, I'm putting that on a Christmas card.
That works.
That is beautiful. I'm gonna wrap this up. Stick around after we finish off, and we'll finish up. But Gentlemen, both, thank you genuinely for your time. This has been a fantastic chat. I knew it was going to be dope. This is phenomenal. Where can we find either you guys individually or Muskoka Brewery online?
Yeah, Muskoka Brewery, www.muskokabrewery.com. Gary, do you want to give your coordinates?
I mean, I've kept it pretty quiet, but sure. Let me look it up first. I got to find out. I'm not a big social media guy.
It's okay.
One sec.
It's at Muskoka Brewery on Instagram. You guys have nearly 70,000 followers. Oh my goodness.
You got it.
That is ridiculous.
Just say that guy, Gary.
It's just like follow Muskoka and just be like, Gary's pretty. Let me talk to him.
Exactly. You got it.
And they'll hook you up. No, this is amazing, guys. Thank you both so much for your time. This is awesome. Yeah, stick around and we'll wrap it up. But everybody, thank you so much for watching and listening. If you enjoyed the episode, smash the thumbs up, hit subscribe below, hit the notification bell so you know when the new drops. Follow us on social media at BAOS Podcast and check out the long form audio where you can hear attractive individuals like Gary and Todd talk about craft beer every week. We typically go live every Friday. Oh, see? That's in you, bro. That's in your blood. We go live typically every Friday at 9 p.m. We've got a few bonus episodes on Thursday. This week, we're just Thursday. We are not here tomorrow. We'll be back next Thursday. Guys, thank you so much for watching. We'll see you in the next episode. Get in here.
Cheers.